Chapter 1838. Bang, bang, bang. Luli was under constant attack. He swung his saber again, and the worms of the void were gnawing at him as well. But those demons were strange. Their claws were tangible. Even when they were cut off by Luli and bitten by the worms of the void, they would recover soon. Their claws could grow back after being cut off, and their bodies remained intangible. They were almost immortal. No wonder so many people believed that Luli could not pass the first level or even survive one day. There was a reason for that. The Tower of Monster Imprisoning was used to suppress demons. Those monsters looked no different from demons, but they did have abilities that were similar to demons. In addition, the environment made Luli feel he was in hell, and he was being torn apart by ghosts. The worms of the void were gnawing at Luli desperately. There were many of them, but the defense of the demons was strong. Also, many of the worms of the void stopped in midair after they were gnawed. It was as if the demons' skin and flesh were poisoned, and they could not attack anymore. Luli no longer counted on the worms of the void. Even if the worms of the void could gnaw off the demons' claws, the demons could just grow them back. It was pointless. The number of wounds on Luli's body was increasing. His mind was working faster and faster. Every time he was in a life-threatening situation, his mind would be clear. He was thinking of ways to escape or to kill the demons. The only thing I can count on is the dragon's soul. But the demons did not enter my body or use soul attacks. The dragon's soul was strong. If the dragon's soul could enter the bodies of the demons, it might be able to devour all of them. However, the demons did not use soul attacks or enter Luli's body. The dragon soul would not protect its master, and Luli could not command it. Let's see. Luli called in his soul and tried to mobilize the dragon soul. He kept moving around, and at the same time, he used the Slayer's ghost slash to crush the claws of the demons. Swish, swish, as time went on, the number of wounds on Luli grew. The bones on his left leg were broken. Luli thought of many ways, but the dragon soul did not make a move. He even asked the worms of the void to attack the dragon soul. However, the dragon soul only swallowed the worms of the void and went back to sleep. It didn't pay any attention to Luli and was extremely cold. That's it. Don't tell me I should risk my life and charge toward the weeds. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Luli gave up on summoning the dragon soul. The only way now was to walk towards the weeds. If there was no danger, he would have a chance to hide from the demons' attacks for a while, and then he could plan his next step. However, as soon as Luli got close to the weeds, he could feel the danger. This sense of danger could not be deceived. Over the years, there had never been a mistake. His sense of danger had always been accurate. Bang, bang, bang. Once again, Luli was hit by 4 claws. There was not much of his body that was still intact. A glint of ruthlessness appeared in his eyes. He had no choice but to rush into the weeds and fight for his life. The divine power in his body circulated furiously. His body shot to the left like an arrow. At that moment, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. He looked behind him and saw a few thousand void worms suddenly flash with black light. It was abnormally dazzling. What's the situation? Luli stopped and used psychic power to check. Those are the thousands of worms of the void that never moved. These thousands of void worms seemed to have mutated. This was because cocoon-like things had appeared outside their bodies, and they were constantly shedding their skin. Have they evolved? Luli was delighted. If there was a mutation, then the worms would either evolve or become something else. Either way, it could be a good thing. Whoosh! Luli turned around and flew back. He wandered around and kept his psychic power on the thousands of worms of the void. He wanted to see what would happen to the thousands of worms of the void. Bang, bang, bang. Luli's body was still being scratched by the demon. He was in pain, but inside, he was full of anticipation. His psychic power was focused on the worms of the void. Those worms were shedding layer by layer. Currently, 3 layers had been shed. After a moment, 5 layers of skin had been shed. The worms of the void had turned from black to golden. Their size and energy remained the same. Apart from the color, nothing else had changed. Attack! Luli told the mother worm to fly the thousands of worms of the void over to try to attack the demons nearby. Whether the worms of the void had evolved or not could be determined by the strength of their attacks. Whoosh! Thousands of worms of the void came. Li's eyes glowed. The thousands of worms of the void were 10 times faster than before. With the increase in speed, their attacks will be enhanced as well. Okay. The worms of the void came to Li and encircled the claws of the two demons. Li was overjoyed. The claws of the two demons were eaten up by the thousands of worms of the void in an instant. Not even the bones were left. The fiendish demons' sturdy claws felt like they were made of paper. In the blink of an eye, they were chewed up, leaving nothing behind. The worms of the void had evolved. Their teeth were 10 times sharper. Those demons were no longer a threat. Whoosh, whoosh. The other demons rushed over. But before they could get close to Li, the thousands of worms of the void dashed over and ate up the worms of the void that had materialized. Without claws, the demons could not hurt Li. Phew, phew. Li felt his eyes were brimming with tears. He looked at the thousands of worms of the void as if they were treasures. The worms of the void were his saviors. When he was in a desperate situation, the worms of the void evolved in time and became his protection. There are tens of thousands of worms of the void over there. I think they are about to evolve as well. Li turned to the worms of the void that were floating in the air. He was delighted. He did not know that the bodies of the demons could have such a miraculous function. Could the worms of the void evolve? Li took out some healing pellets and stood where he was to tend his wounds. With thousands of worms of the void flying around him, it was like he was wearing an armor that was impervious to weapons. The demons could not get close to him anymore. The demons retreated as soon as their claws were bitten off and waited for the claws to grow back. The more than a dozen demons had taken turns to come at Li. Their claws were bitten off. Now, they had retreated to a nearby area, waiting for their claws to grow back. Buzzing, not far away, thousands of worms of the void began to molt in a black glow. Li had an idea. He gathered all the worms of the void around him, so that those that had not evolved could attack the demons first. In this way, more worms of the void could evolve. Li imagined that with hundreds of millions of golden worms of the void, even if Uncle Li were to come near him, he would be bitten into pieces in an instant. Not only could the worms of the void ensure his survival in the Tower of Monsters, but they could also enhance his comprehensive abilities. Whoosh, 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 the more than a dozen demons' hands grew back and they were coming at Li. Those demons did not seem to be very intelligent. They could not understand the situation at all. As soon as they came over, they were bitten by the worms of the void, and then the golden worms of the void gnawed them into pieces. Buzzing, buzzing. Chapter 1839. Half a day later, Li's wounds were healed. The demon had attacked for more than a dozen times. Every time, the demon's claws were bitten off by the golden worms of void, and they had to retreat. For batches of golden worms of void had evolved, and there were more than 30,000 of them. Tens of thousands of worms of void were floating in the air, glowing in a dark light. Soon, they would evolve again. Li was relieved. He did not know if he could make it past the first level of the Tower of Monsters. But at the very least, he would not die. If worse came to worst, he could be teleported out in 10 days. He sat on the ground without a care for his image. He cleaned himself and put on some clean clothes. He did not put on any armor. After all, supreme relic armors could not stand the attacks of the demons. Wearing one made no difference. Are the demons going to keep attacking? Li was curious. The energy inside a demon was not inexhaustible, was it? They could not heal themselves forever, could they? Otherwise, Cloudy Mountain would not have captured beasts of primordial chaos to replenish their energy. He was right. After another 2 hours, after the demons attacked a few more times, their bodies became transparent. More than a dozen demons burrowed into the grass and disappeared. They actually retreated on their own initiative. Li did not move forward. He waited for all the worms of void to finish their evolution. Tens of thousands of worms of void were floating in the air. They needed time to evolve. The number of golden worms of void around Lu had reached more than 40,000. It was not a large number, but it was enough for Lu to protect himself. Lu continued to heal. Half a day later, his wounds were almost healed, and the worms of the void had finished their evolution as well. Lu opened his eyes, stood up, and walked forward. Previously, he was afraid of moving forward. Now he was looking forward to it. He needed more demons for the worms of void to evolve. When all the worms of void evolved, his comprehensive abilities would be greatly enhanced. Buzzing, after walking for a kilometer, the sky flashed with red light again. The weeds on both sides of the road moved and black shadows flashed out. Another dozen or so fiendish demons came out. Too few. Lu pressed on. About 30 feet later, nearly 100 demons came out from the grasses on both sides. Lu stepped back with satisfaction. The nearly 100 demons were coming at him in a frenzy. Go! Lu asked the unevolved worms of void to attack, while the evolved ones stayed by his side for protection. If they wanted to attack him, they would have to pierce through the golden void worm's encirclement. However, before they could even attack him, the demon's claws would be bitten off. Whoosh, 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 one demon after another rushed over. Their claws were bitten by regular worms of the void. When they reached Lu, they were eaten up by the golden worms of the void. This demon was powerless to attack and could only retreat. The remaining demons rushed forward and formed a cycle. Soon, all of the void worms had attacked once, and their claws had all been bitten off. This time, tens of thousands of void worms started to evolve. Lu was overjoyed. The more worms of the void evolved, the safer he would be. If a few 100 million void worms evolved, he would be able to rampage. Even if tens of thousands of demons attacked, he would not be afraid. If the first level is filled with such demons, then it'll be fun. Lu was excited. If all the demons on the first floor were like this, he could pass through easily and get the iron token. Whoosh, whoosh, the demons began to attack again. Lu did not mind at all. He watched the demons coming at him leisurely. To him, the demons were no longer horrifying monsters. They were food for the worms of the void, high-level materials that could help the worms of the void evolve. Half a day later, all the worms of the void left. This time, more than 100,000 worms of the void had evolved, and more were still evolving. This time, Lu was not in the mood to wait. He could not go far anyway. He could just fly the worms of the void over. He strode forward. This time, he moved forward for more than 2,000 feet and attracted hundreds of demons. Let's go. Lu waved his hand. The worms of the void danced around him and dashed toward the materialized claws of the demons. Demons were coming from all directions. However, as soon as the demons were within a few feet of Lu, their claws would be bitten off by the golden worms of the void, and they would retreat. There are too many golden worms of the void. Let's gather some and leave. After a moment, Lu felt that there were too many golden worms of the void. He could not have more regular worms of the void to eat, and the regular worms of the void could not evolve. Lu gathered the 100,000 worms of the void and stayed in the distance. After all, the 100,000 worms of the void were enough to protect him. The cycle repeated. On the third day, Lu was pleasantly surprised again. Some of the golden worms of the void began to split after they had eaten for a long time. More importantly, after the golden worms of the void split, there were also golden worms of the void. They were evolved worms of the void. Even though there were only tens of thousands of worms of the void, it was a good start. In time, the number of golden worms of the void would increase. Moving forward, attracting demons, regular worms of the void to eat, golden worms of the void to eat. Regular worms of the void evolved, and golden worms of the void split. Over and over again, it went on and on. On the seventh day, Lu had covered 300 miles. He now had more than 5 million golden worms of the void. Most of them had evolved, and a small number of them had split. As a matter of fact, Lu could rush forward with the worms of the void. He sped up. However, Lu was still cautious. He was afraid that there might be other demons other than this one on the first level. He was too strong to take the risk. How come he is still alive? Outside the Tower of Monsters, many people were enraged. Many were hopping with rage. They had lost a lot of divine sources because Luli was still alive. Most of them bet that Luli would die on the first day or the second day. Those people had lost a lot of divine sources. Some of them did not believe it and continued to bet that Luli would die on the fifth or sixth day. Until now, Luli was still alive. Many who had lost divine sources vented their anger on Luli. They wished they could eat him alive. Someone began to bet that Luli would be teleported out on the 10th day. The odds were low, but many did. They wanted to earn back the divine sources they had lost to make up for their losses. The dragon warrior of the Zhuang family kept a straight face, but he was overjoyed. Luli, the dark horse, had helped him make a fortune. The dragon warrior had a better impression of Luli and was now seeing him in a different light. More and more people bet that Luli would be teleported out in 10 days. The dragon warrior could not say no since he had made so many bets and earned so much divine sources gold. He prayed to himself that Luli would not be teleported out after 10 days. Otherwise, the dragon warrior would suffer a great loss. 10 days later, more people were teleporting out. The dragon warrior was overjoyed. It was nightfall, and Luli was still not teleported out. Chapter 1840. On the 10th day, a portal appeared above Luli's head. Luli knew that he could be teleported out, but how could he? He wished he could stay in there for a few months to evolve all the worms of the void. He had traveled for thousands of miles. There were nearly 10 million golden worms of the void. Every time he moved, he could attract hundreds of demons. But it didn't matter how many there were. The demons could not get close to him. He slowed down on purpose, waiting for the worms of the void to evolve. He was also feeling a little bored. Every time he lured the demons over, he would sit cross-legged on the spot and start cultivating. Only when all the demons had retreated would he continue on his way. The worms of the void would eat, evolve, and divide on their own. Luli didn't have to worry. Every time, Luli would move forward for 1 or 2 miles. After he attracted hundreds of demons, he would sit on the spot and wait for the worms of the void to eat and evolve. Time passed by. What Luli was worried about didn't happen. There were always these kinds of demons and no other strange ones. Luli sped up. 20 days later, the number of golden worms of the void around Luli had reached over 40 million. Luli sped up again. There was no difference between 40 million void worms and 400 million void worms. The main thing was that the golden void worms could split, and after splitting, they would evolve into void worms. So 40 million void worms were enough for now. There was no need for him to keep wasting time here. As he increased his speed, he attracted even more fiendish demons. This time, he attracted close to 1,000 fiendish demons. It felt like he was surrounded by fiendish demons from all directions. I wonder how many demons there are on the first level. When he and Uncle Lee came in, they separated automatically, which meant that the others would be separated as well. Everyone had their own path, and every path was surrounded by demons. In this way, the number of demons on the first level must be considerable. Where did the demons come from? Yes, who was the one who caught these demons? Is it the master of the Cloudy Mountain? The sister of the Asmodean Lord? Luli had many questions. If it was the master of the Cloudy Mountain, then this sister of the Asmodean Lord must be horrifying. Also, why did she catch so many demons? Why did she let the warriors of the Cloudy Mountain go in? Did she treat the Tower of Demons as a game because she was bored? She had nothing better to do, so she watched as people fought with the demons and were torn apart by them. She watched as groups of people fought to the death with the demons in order to obtain better treatment. Did she take pleasure in that? Luli subconsciously looked up into the sky. In the haze, he seemed to see a pair of eyes looking at the situation in a mocking manner. She was like a high and mighty Lord God, watching over the masses fighting for their own interests and survival. Perhaps the entire world is a playground? All of them were the same Yao ceiling pagoda. The God realm was divided into several layers. Wasn't it the same as the Yao ceiling pagoda? The main gods are high above, watching as martial artists struggle and fight to the death, also that they can go to a higher plane and obtain greater power. A bold idea popped into Luli's mind. Perhaps, for the main gods, the countless levels and realms of the divinity realm were all their playground. When they were bored, they would watch all the living beings inside, watching them fight against each other, fighting against the earth, and fighting against the heavens. They found it boundless joy. Perhaps the rules of the world were set by them. The laws of heaven and earth were the rules of the game. Heaven's tribulations were set up by them. Everything was arranged by them. They were the ones who set the rules of the game. All living beings were pawns. Invisibly, they controlled the fate and life and death of all living beings. After a moment, Luli forced a smile. He had gone too far. The idea was too bold. So what if they were pawns? Could the pawns fight back against the chess player? As far as Luli was concerned, he was one of the weakest pawns. Let's go. The demons nearby had retreated. Luli pressed on. If life was a game of chess, then his idea was that he was a pawn. Slow as he was, he would never take a step back. 1 day, 5 days, 11 days. Luli was moving faster and faster. Toward the end, he was surrounded by at least thousands of demons. The number of golden worms of the void had doubled. There were almost 1 billion of them now. Today, Luli finally stopped because he had reached the end of the road. There was no more road ahead. It was a barren land. At the end of the barren land was a hill. On the hill was a portal. Clearly, this was the end of the first level. There were no weeds in the barren land. Luli could see through the wilderness. Apart from the bare stones and mud, there was nothing else. Though there was nothing, Luli still felt terrified. He could tell that many powerful demons were lurking in the barren land. If he dared to step in, he would be torn apart. The hill was not far away. If Luli sped up to the top of his speed, he could reach it in the time for 1 breath and enter the portal. If everything went smoothly, he would be teleported out. But Luli did not dare to take any risks. If there were powerful demons lurking around, he would be torn apart in an instant. There were still thousands of demons around him. Luli was not in a hurry. He stood where he was, waiting for the demons to leave. He scanned the area with his spiritual force over and over again, but found nothing. Blood Fairy, go and see what is underground. Luli sent a message to Blood Fairy. Soon, the wicked bead glowed in red. Blood Fairy reached out her tentacles into the ground to check. Blood Fairy's tentacles could extend infinitely. She could reach hundreds of thousands of miles into the ground. A moment later, Blood Fairy replied, Master, there are no living beings in the ground, but I can sense something strange like souls. They are hiding deep in the ground. There are some inhibition formations down there. Those souls are hiding in the inhibition formations. I cannot see clearly unless I can break the inhibition formations. Inhibition formations? Luli knew that there must be inhibition formations in the Tower of Monsters, at least in the weeds nearby. Otherwise, his psychic power would not have failed to detect the demons lurking in there. He asked, Is it difficult to break the inhibition formations? Yes, but I think it will be fine. Blood Fairy answered. Luli was worried. Once the inhibition formations were broken, the demons would be able to see clearly. Maybe the inhibition formations could increase the abilities of the demons. If the inhibition formations were broken, the demons would be weakened. In that case, Luli would have a better chance of breaking through. The thing was, the Tower of Monsters belonged to the Master of Cloudy Mountain. If Luli broke the inhibition formations without permission, the Master of Cloudy Mountain would know. The Master of Cloudy Mountain might fly into a rage. By then, Luli would not have a good life at Cloudy Mountain, even if he could survive. Forget it. A moment later, when all the demons nearby were defeated, a glint of coldness rose in Luli's eyes. He made up his mind and said, Blood Fairy, break the formation. Chapter 1841. There was no need to doubt Blood Fairy's ability to break through formations. She never lied. So after waiting for half an hour, there was movement in front of them. Buzzing, Luli felt the ground was trembling. He used psychic power to check. At first, he did not see anything. But now, he saw many demons, all of them the same kind of dwarfs. The difference was that the 10 dwarfs were larger and stronger, and they had an extra eye between their eyebrows. Are they the Demon Kings? Luli stepped back quickly. Even though he had figured out what was going on, he didn't dare to rush forward recklessly. The 10 Demon Kings were terrifying to him. The sense of danger he felt must have come from the 10 Demon Kings. Blood Fairy, come back, Luli said to Blood Fairy. The inhibition formations had been broken. It would be pointless for Blood Fairy to stay. It would be terrible if she was harmed by the demons. Blood Fairy came back at once. All the demons began to move. They swarmed upward. In the blink of an eye, the wilderness was filled with demons. Luli could not tell how many there were. The 10 Demon Kings did not move. They were still lurking underground. Luli was relieved after he retreated for 30 miles. Because of this, more demons were coming at him, but none could get close to him. The golden worm of void was like a layer of diamond armor. None of the demons could get close. Luli did not mind the low-level demons. He used psychic power to check on the Demon Kings in the wilderness, trying to figure out a way to stop the 10. If there were 10 ancient Demon Kings with heaven-defying defensive power, the golden void worms wouldn't be able to bite them instantly. Then, with his defensive power, he definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. He would be killed by the ancient Demon Kings with a single swipe. The thing was, he could not test it. He could not let out the Immortal's body to fight back. The Immortal's body would not be able to stand it. Also, the Immortal's body did not have any breath of life. The Demon Kings would not necessarily take action. Luli only had 2 choices. Either he could go back and find that portal and teleport out, or he could go forward. He might be able to enter the portal, or he might be killed by the Demon Kings. Luli thought for a while. He decided to give it a try and see how strong the demons in the wilderness were. If the demons on the other side were as strong as the ones on the other side, or even weaker, then he could give it a try. If the demons over there were stronger than the ones coming out of the bushes, then he could only retreat. He mobilized tens of millions of golden void worms to envelop the space within a radius of 100 meters around him. Then, he slowly walked towards the wasteland. Whoosh, whoosh, as soon as Luli stepped out of the wilderness, many demons swarmed over. Luli stayed still and observed quietly. He scanned these demons with his spiritual will, trying to determine their combat strength. Xiao, the more than a dozen demons at the front rushed over and dashed into the range of the golden worms. When they were about 150 feet away from Luli, they generated tangible claws. Crack, 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 the golden void worm moved and instantly bit the demon's claw to pieces. Luli was a bit disappointed that the demons in the wilderness and those on the trails were of the same strength. He thought that the demons here would be slightly weaker after breaking through the restrictions below. To challenge or not to challenge? This was a difficult choice. Luli was in a dilemma. After all, he was gambling with his life. If he lost, he would be doomed eternally. If he went back, Commander Young might not be able to kill him. Luli still had a chance of survival. Therefore, Luli was in a dilemma. The demons swarmed over and were eaten by the golden void worms. Some of them began to split up again. Luli looked at the splitting worms of the void. A glint of determination rose in his eyes. The evolution of the worms of the void had increased his comprehensive abilities. It could even be said that his abilities had been doubled. He could quit and cultivate for 8 to 10 years, learn 1 or 2 fundamental principles, and improve his divine energy and soul. But his abilities would not be improved by much. In the future, his strongest skill would still be the worms of the void. Therefore, if he could not make it now, it would be pointless to quit and cultivate for a while. Let's go. Luli decided to take a gamble. The exit to the first level was right ahead. If the worms of the void could last for a while and bite off the demon's claw, then he could rush into the portal. Phew, phew. Luli breathed heavily. He was tense. The cold blade saber in his hand glowed. He gave an order to the mother worm to have all the worms of the void follow him and eat any demons that came near him. Let's go. He didn't care about the thousands of worms of the void anymore. He dashed forward at the top of his speed. If the demon kings didn't attack, Luli could make it to the peak in an instant. It was impossible for the demon kings to stay still. When Luli rushed into the wilderness, the other 10 demon kings all rushed up and attacked Lu Li from 3 directions. Swish! 10 sharp noises came out. The 10 demons' claws became tangible, glowing in a dark gold color. The claws reached toward Lu Li with unstoppable momentum. Lu Li didn't have to feel the 20 claws. One look was enough to make his heart tremble. Worms of the void, it's up to you. Lu Li yelled. The nearly 100 million golden worms of the void danced around him and enveloped all the demons nearby, including the 10 demon kings. Countless worms of the void were biting at the 20 claws. Okay. Lu Li's eyes glowed. The golden worms of the void did not disappoint him. The 20 claws were not bitten off at once, but they were all bitten off after they moved forward for more than 30 feet. Not even the bones were left. There were too many worms of the void. The demon kings should not be able to get close. However, what happened next shocked Lu Li. The claws of the demon kings grew out in an instant. The eyes between the eyebrows of the 10 demon kings opened. 10 streaks of black light shot out and went into Lu Li's body. Soul attack. Lu Li sensed 10 streaks of strange energy dashing into his soul. Out of instinct, he stopped on the spot. His soul was under attack. This was a serious matter. One careless move, and his soul could collapse. Buzzing. The dragon's soul outside his soul glowed at once and began to devour the energy. That being said, the 10 streaks of energy were strong. Lu Li could devour them, but it would take time. Move! Lu Li didn't care about the energy anymore. He rushed forward because the 10 demon kings were approaching. In such a short time, their claws had grown out 4 times. But they were all bitten off by the worms of the void. Whoosh! Lu Li leaped up and dodged the demon king that was coming at him. He flew up to the top of the hill. The 10 demon kings were on his way. However, every time their claws were bitten off, they would pause for a moment. Naturally, they could not catch up with Lu Li. Whoosh! Lu Li dashed into the portal, followed by the worms of the void. The demon king and the other demons came as well, but they all stopped outside the portal. Buzzing, after a flash of white light, Lu Li appeared at the Tower of Demon Banishment. The worms of the void were teleported out as well. Lu Li came out and took a look. He was delighted. He put the worms of the void back into the mountain at once. Chapter 1842. What? After a short period of silence, the crowd burst into an uproar. Finally, Lu Li was teleported out. But at that moment, the Tower of Demon Imprisonment glowed in golden light, which meant that Lu Li had passed the first level. Many people were swearing, and many more were glaring at Lu Li with killing intent. Some of them were glaring at Lu Li with jealousy. If it were not for the fact that there were commanders and warriors at the foot of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment, and that the Cloud Mountain could not make a move, many people would have rushed over and smashed Lu Li to death. Lu Li had made many people lose their pants. Apart from a small number of people that bet on Lu Li passing the first level, all the others lost. Only the Zhuang family could make a fortune. Some were giving Lu Li meaningful looks. The insects that flew out with Lu Li and the mountain that Lu Li took out had given them some ideas. There was a glint of greed in their eyes. Lu Li's realm was not high, and he had just passed the first heaven tribulation. But he could pass the first level of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment. What did it mean? It meant that Lu Li had valuable treasures on him. Those insects flew out with Lu Li. Needless to say, they must be the last ones to go into the portal with Lu Li. Those insects must be powerful. Lu Li's realm was low and he was young. He had valuable treasures on him. How could he not be coveted? Lu Li, congratulations on passing the first level. This is your iron token. A leader walked over with several sergeants. He took a look at the register and handed Lu Li an iron token. Then he looked at the register and said, "You have the right to live in the Green Moon Peak, one of the 18 main peaks. Castle number 17 is empty. You can move in directly. I will let you know about the rest later." "Thank you, my lord." Lu Li cupped his fists. He looked around and asked, "I have an uncle named Li Tian. Is he out?" "Not yet." The commander shook his head and added, "He is not dead yet. You can go back or wait for him nearby. You possess an iron token identity. Other than the Sky Cloud Peak, you can freely walk around the rest of the places. but you must not break the rules of the Cloud Mountain." "Thank you, my lord." Lu Li and Uncle Li had a spiritual connection, so he knew Uncle Li was still alive. Lu Li cupped his fists again and asked no more questions. He stood on the side and waited. Just as he retreated to the side, 7 to 8 people surrounded him. They were all second tribulation heavenly gods, and one of them said coldly, "Brat, you caused us to lose a few hundred divine origin gold. What do you think we should do about this?" 7 or 8 warriors surrounded Lu Li. Many of them were strong, but Lu Li was not afraid at all. This was the foot of Sky Cloud Peak, and there were soldiers and commanders at the side. This group of people dared to make a move. Lu Li said with a straight face, "You lost the bet. You made a mistake. What does it have to do with me? Why don't you bet on me passing the first level?" One of them flew into a rage out of humiliation and said, "You're quite arrogant, aren't you? If you have the guts, do you want to play with me outside of Mount Heavenly Cloud?" Lu Li wasn't stupid, and he didn't want to waste time with these gamblers. He said coldly, "Move. I don't want to talk to you. If you have the guts, then fight me here. If you don't have the guts, then scram." "You." The warriors were fuming with rage. The warriors looked at them with a smile. They wouldn't interfere as long as they didn't fight or quarrel. They were happy to watch the fun. "Enough." Not far away, the old dragon said, "You have lost the bet. Why are you making things difficult for a young man? You want to play, right? I will go with you, and I will fight all 8 of you. How about that? I don't want to fight with a freak like you." One of them rolled his eyes, and the rest of them also gave up. It seemed that this old dragon's battle prowess was very strong, and his prestige was also very high. When he spoke, everyone had to give him face. Lu Li cupped his fist to the old dragon and stood there in silence. Since Uncle Li was still alive, then he wouldn't die for now. It all depended on whether he could pass the first level or not. Uncle Li was good among second tribulation heaven immortals, and he was strong in defense. He should have a chance to pass. After a long time, Lu Li decided to sit on the ground. He was safe here, and nobody dared to do anything to him. There were people cultivating here as well. The Shinchi in heaven and earth was rich here. The first level of the Tower of Monsters is already so horrifying. The second level must be even more so. How powerful must I be to pass the 3rd, 4th, and 5th levels? Lu Li felt bitter. Only those who could pass the 5th level could have the chance to enter the primordial realm. He had been fantasizing about going in, but it seemed to be a pipe dream. The 2nd level could only be passed by warriors at the peak of second tribulation. Then, the 3rd level could only be passed by 3rd tribulation heaven immortals. Could it be that the 5th level could only be passed by 4th tribulation heaven immortals? No. Lu Li shook his head. The Asmodean Lord should only be at the peak of 3rd tribulation heaven immortals. Even if the Asmodean Lord's sister was strong, she should only be a 3rd tribulation heaven immortal. If the Master of Cloud Mountain was only that strong, then the Tower of Monsters should not be so difficult. Then, the 2nd level should not be difficult. When Uncle Li comes out, I will go and find someone to get some information. Lu Li began to cultivate after some thoughts. Cultivating divine energy here was indeed fast, at least 10 times faster than cultivating outside. Lu Li did not study fundamental principle. While cultivating divine energy, he kept an eye on the outside. 4 days later, another group of warriors came to try the Tower of Monsters. Another 3 went to the 2nd level. The old dragon had more people placing their bets. In the next few days, the gate glowed and more people died. On the 8th day, someone was teleported out. Someone had passed the 2nd level. On the 12th day, the Tower of Monsters glowed. A man flew out, covered in blood and missing a leg. As soon as he came out, he fell to the ground. Uncle Li. Lu Li opened his eyes at once and rushed over. Uncle Li was not surprised to see Lu Li because he had a spiritual connection with Lu Li. If Lu Li died and Uncle Li did not cut off the spiritual connection, Uncle Li would die as well. Uncle Li sat up with a bitter smile, took a healing pellet, and said, "You have been waiting out there for a long time, haven't you?" "Not really. Just a bit more than 10 days. Lu Li answered. A bit more than 10 days? Uncle Li thought that Lu Li would be teleported out on the 10th day. He didn't expect that Luli had only been out for a bit more than 10 days. Uncle Lee was taken aback. After a while, he asked in disbelief, "You have passed the first level?" "Yes." Luli nodded. Uncle Lee was even more surprised. He had spent such a long time and suffered such serious injuries. He had risked his life to make it. He didn't expect that Luli could make it. Judging by his tone, it seemed to be quite easy. "Li Tian, congratulations on passing the first level. This is your ID token. Since you're uncle and nephew, you can live at the Green Moon Peak." The leader of the Tower of Monsters walked over. Luli took over the token for Uncle Lee and said, "Shall we go to the Green Moon Peak first?" "Wait." Chapter 1843. The Green Crescent Peak was at the northwest of the Heaven Cloud's peak, only dozens of miles away from the demon subduing tower. Luli and Uncle Lee could live in separate castles. However, the castle was too big and Uncle Lee was badly injured. Luli decided to bring Uncle Lee back to his own castle. Uncle Lee was recovering and cultivating in the castle. Luli planned to go out and gather information after Uncle Lee was healed. Uncle Lee was not reliable in gathering information. There was a lot of information that was not clear. Luli had better go in person. 5 days later, Uncle Lee was almost recovered. Luli left the castle alone and wandered around the Green Crescent Peak. He had 90 pieces of divine origin gold with him. He planned to use them to find out everything about the Heaven Cloud's peak and the demon subduing tower. Luli wandered around the Green Crescent Peak. There were many castles here. Apart from the ones that were empty, the others were all closed. Clearly, the people inside were cultivating. "There's a pond over there." Luli walked to the north side of the mountain and saw a pond halfway up the mountain. The pond was surrounded by mist. Luli could faintly see some people in the mist. Luli hurried over along the mountain path. When he was close, he used psychic power to check and found some people cultivating by the pond. They're all in seclusion. Luli used psychic power to check and found 11 people near the pond. All of them were in closed-door cultivation. People hated to be disturbed when they were cultivating. If Luli were to wake them up by force, he might incur their wrath, let alone getting information. "There is someone over there." There was a river upstream of the pond. Luli used the psychic power to check and found a girl taking a walk by the river a couple of miles away. "Go and ask." Girls were greedy for petty gains and gossipy. They were the best at gathering information. Luli strode over. He kept a distance of half a mile from the girl and raised his voice on purpose in case the girl would misunderstand. The girl might not have heard Luli's footsteps, or she was in deep thought. She stood under a willow tree by the river, gazing into the river. She didn't even notice Luli was close by. The girl had a beautiful figure. She was wearing a green dress. She had a pure and refined temperament. Luli could not see her face clearly because there was a veil over it. It must be a piece of treasure. Luli stopped about 10 feet away from the lady. He cupped his fists and said, "Lady, sorry for the intrusion." The girl turned around. Luli saw a pair of watery eyes, bright and beautiful. There was no emotion in her eyes. She said softly, "What's the matter?" "I am Luli. I just moved into the Green Moon Peak not long ago. This is my ID token." Luli was afraid that he would scare the girl away. He took out his jade talisman and said with a smile, "I am looking for you for some information. If you can tell me, I will reward you handsomely." "Generous reward." A faint smile appeared in the woman's eyes as she asked, "What can you give me in return?" "I have some divine origin gold." Luli was delighted. It was true that girls liked to take advantage of others. He took out some pieces of white divine origin gold and said, "Answer my question and I will give you a piece of divine origin gold. What do you think?" Luli and Uncle Lee made a bet and won 90 pieces of divine origin gold. Luli didn't know what the divine origin gold could be used for at the Cloud Mountain. If he could get some accurate information, he wouldn't mind spending it. "Okay." The lady nodded. She didn't look at the divine origin gold in Luli's hand. She said softly, "You said it. 1 piece of divine origin gold for 1 question. Give me the divine origin gold first, and I will answer your questions." "A gentleman never goes back on his word," Luli said straightforwardly. He threw a piece of divine origin gold to her and asked, First question. Will the leaders of the Cloud Mountains still dare to plot against me after I get the iron token? I have some old scores with one of them. Why wouldn't I dare? The lady shrugged and said, the iron token is nothing. Only with the bronze token will the leaders not dare to do anything. But I think they will be more careful. After all, if something goes wrong, they will be executed by the Hall of Penal Laws. Luli was satisfied with the lady's answer. He threw another piece of divine origin gold and said, if there's a leader who wants to harm me, what will he do? Will he enlist me to hunt beasts of primordial chaos? That's 2 questions. The lady reached out her hand. Luli had to give her another piece of divine origin gold. She said with satisfaction, there is no way to enlist someone with the iron token. But 1 year after you get the iron token, you will have a chance to cultivate under the Demon King's stone. The Demon King's stone is more than 300 miles away from the Cloud Mountain. Unless you give up this chance, that leader might do something to you after you leave the Cloud Mountain. Also, he might ask other warriors with the iron token to provoke you and enrage you so that you'll have to go out and fight. Demon King's stone? This was the first time Luli had heard of this. He asked in surprise, what is the Demon King's stone? That is another question. The lady in green reached out her hand. Luli gave her another piece of divine origin gold. She said with satisfaction, to the north of the Cloud Mountain, there is a mountain. There's a stone on the mountain. The Demon King once cultivated there and left some profound meaning on the stone. It is said that many people have learned some powerful, fundamental meanings from the Demon King's stone. Those with the iron token can go there to cultivate for a day once a year. Those with the bronze token can go there once a month. Those with the silver token can go there to cultivate as many times as they want. As for those with the gold token are strong enough. They don't need to cultivate under the Demon King's stone. Oh, that is a good place. Luli felt more confident now. He had just gotten the iron token, but the leader and the warriors didn't tell him. He thought about it and asked, is it easy to pass the 2nd level of the demon subduing tower? The lady reached out her hand. Luli gave her a piece of divine origin gold. She said with a smile, it depends on your strength. It is not difficult for powerful warriors, but for low-level warriors it is difficult. They will die for sure. Aren't you talking nonsense? Luli rolled his eyes. The lady added with a smile, with your current abilities, it is already incredible that you can pass the 1st level. If you go to the 2nd level, you will have an 80% chance of dying. Luli gave her a piece of divine origin gold and asked, then can you describe in detail what kind of demons there are on the 2nd level of the demon subduing tower? What kind of skills do they have? Do you have any skills? The lady said nothing. She reached out 3 fingers and then opened her palm. Luli understood. He gave her another 2 pieces of divine origin gold. The lady said, I cannot answer your 3 questions because I have never passed the 2nd level of the demon subduing tower. If I had the skills, I would have passed the 2nd level, and I would be living on the Heaven Cloud's peak now. Are you stupid? How can you ask such questions? **T. Luli was speechless. He said with frustration, Lady, you can't answer my questions, and then you swindled me of 3 pieces of divine origin gold? You swindled me, and you said I am stupid. You are so unreasonable. P.S. Many people gave me messy chapters yesterday. This is a technical question of the app and has nothing to do with the old monster. You didn't miss 3 chapters yesterday. Chapter 1844. Haha. The woman laughed and said, You can't blame me for this. You can only blame yourself for asking such a silly question. Are you going to ask or not? If not, I am leaving. Luli said nothing for a while. He had to swallow the loss and continue to ask about the Cloudy Mountain and the Tower of Monsters. But he was more careful with his questions. He would not ask stupid questions like before. The lady knew something about the Cloudy Mountain. After spending dozens of pieces of divine origin gold, Luli had learned something about the Cloudy Mountain. He asked one last question. Lady, can I ask your name? Can you not accept the divine origin gold for this question? Sure, I will give it to you for free. My name is Fairy. A cunning look appeared in the lady's eyes. She tilted her head and asked, Why are you asking for my name? Are you interested in me? No, Luli waved his hand and said, I am asking for your name because I don't want to see you again. I don't want to be tricked by you again. The smile froze in the lady's eyes. She stomped her feet and was about to say something when Luli had disappeared into the distance. The lady snorted and murmured, You don't want to see me? You think you can hide from me at the Cloudy Mountain? Luli went back to the castle. Uncle Lee woke up and asked, Master, how is it going? Everything is fine. Luli sat down and said, If we don't go out, Commander Yang is no longer a threat. But in a year, we can go to the Demon King Stone to cultivate. The Demon King Stone is outside the Cloudy Mountain. Unless we don't go, he will have a chance to attack us. What is the Demon King Stone? Uncle Lee asked with curiosity. Luli explained. Uncle Lee thought about it and said, Then let's not go for now. We can cultivate in the castle for dozens of years. By then, Commander Yang will have forgotten about it. No, Luli could not wait that long. A glint of coldness rose in his eyes as he said, Anyways, the Cloud Mountain will not interfere with the fights that happen outside. We will go out in a year. If Commander Yang dares to make trouble for us, he will make arrangements. By then, we will take the chance to kill him. Kill him? Uncle Lee's eyelids twitched as he asked, Commander Yang is stronger than me. I'm afraid we won't be a match for him, even if we work together. No. Uncle Lee suddenly remembered that Luli had passed the first level of the Tower of Demon Subduing earlier than him. Uncle Lee became excited and asked, Master, did you come across something on the first level of the Tower of Demon Subduing that increased your abilities? Luli's mountain glowed as he let out some golden worms of the void. He grinned and said, Uncle Lee, I will let the worms of the void attack you. You can dodge and defend at your best. This insect's color is different from before. Uncle Lee was startled for a moment before he happily said, Master, come on, but you have to control it carefully. Don't bite me to death. Shio. Uncle Lee's wounds were almost healed. He dashed around the castle. Luli controlled some worms of the void to fly over. They were much faster than Uncle Lee. Soon, Luli caught up with him. Buzzing. The worms of the void became a shadow. The cyan airstream around Uncle Lee was useless. The worms of the void snuck into one of Uncle Lee's arms. Uncle Lee screamed in pain and shouted, Master, you can stop now. I cannot control the worms of the void. Buzzing. The few worms of the void snuck out from Uncle Lee's arms and were put away by Luli into the mountain. Uncle Lee took a healing pellet and said with a bitter smile, Master, the worms have evolved, right? They are so fast, and they are eating fast. I have thought of 3 ways, but none of them can stop them. You are freaky. Yes, the worms of the void have eaten the bodies of demons and evolved. Luli nodded and asked, Do you think I can kill Commander Yang if I sneak up on him? It is possible. Uncle Lee answered after some thoughts. That will depend on whether Commander Yang has ways to control the worms of the void. Your worms are much faster than Commander Yang. If you sneak up on him, you can sneak into his body. If he doesn't, then it will be easy to kill him. That's good. Luli believed that average warriors would find it hard to control the worms of the void. If he could release millions of them in an instant, killing Commander Yang would not be a problem. Luli had a feeling that a viper was lurking in a corner and would come out to bite them all of a sudden. Time to cultivate. Luli sat for a while and then went back to his room. He would think about what would happen in a year. He wanted to cultivate for a year to see if he could make a breakthrough. Luli entered the room and activated the inhibition formation. Gradually, he calmed down and began to think about cultivation. Previously, he had figured out that there were only 2 ways for him to grow stronger quickly. The first was to find a place with strong thunderbolts to improve his body. But clearly, the second way was not working. He could not leave the mountain of clouds because he could not find any place with thunderbolts nearby. Then, the second way was to learn one fundamental principle after another and then integrate it into the Slayer's Ghost Cut. As long as the Slayer's Ghost Cut could make more turns, its power would be multiplied. What fundamental principle do I need to learn? Luli was deep in thought. Fundamental principle was not something that could be learned at will. Without any direction, it would be difficult to learn fundamental principle from nothing. What was more, even if he did learn one fundamental principle, It might not be suitable for him to integrate it, nor could it be easy. Land of Illusion. Luli entered the land of illusion, forgetting all the troubles in the outside world. He began to search for a fundamental principle to learn. In this state, his mind would be at absolute peace. If he could be inspired, it would be easy for him to learn fundamental principle. To be inspired, he would have to think back to some strange sights and scenes of battles. Luli thought back bit by bit, try to find the inspiration in his soul. In the land of illusion, he felt time had almost stopped. Therefore, he did not have much sense of time. In Li's imagination, only 1 or 2 months had passed. Soon a year had passed. The inhibition formation in the room lit up. Li was startled. He opened his eyes in disappointment. He did not gain much this time. He didn't even learn one fundamental principle. He opened the door. Uncle Li came in and said, "Master, it has been a year. A warrior came to tell us that we have a chance to study at the Stone of Demon King. If we want to go, we must go to the Mountain of Demon King in 3 days, or we will not be able to wait." "It has been a year?" Li exclaimed. He did not feel that time had passed so quickly. He just felt that he had wasted his time after a year of cultivation with nothing to show for it. "Let's go." Chapter 1845. In order to get to the Demon King Stone, they had to leave the Cloud Mountain first. Li and Uncle Li left the Crescent Peak in a low-key manner and went out from the surrounding hills. They thought it was better to avoid trouble, so they didn't make a big fuss. The two of them walked to the northwest corner of Sky Cloud Mountain. Uncle Li took out a map and pointed to a small dot on it. He said, "This is the Demon King Mountain. The Demon King Stone is at the peak of the mountain. It is only 1,000 miles away from us. But do you see the white haze? There's a maze nearby, so we have to walk step by step. If everything goes well, we will only need the time for 1 incense stick to burn. Commander Yang's ambush must be in the white haze." "Why is there white haze? Did someone set it up on purpose?" Li frowned. Under normal circumstances, they could cover the distance of 300 miles in the time for a few breaths. Because of the white haze, the time was extended to the time for 1 incense stick to burn. It was as if someone had set it up on purpose so that they could kill their enemies here. "I don't think so." Uncle Li shook his head and said, "According to the warrior, the Mountain of Demon King is surrounded by white haze. It has been here for many years. If we can build a teleportation formation here and teleport to the Mountain of Demon King directly, we will be safe. I think the warriors of the Mountain of Clouds are doing this on purpose." Li was still confused. He felt like this was purposely set up so that it would be easier to assassinate him here. He thought about it and said, "Uncle Li, take the mountain with you. If there are enemies, we will work together to kill them." Uncle Li's defense was much stronger than Li's. Li could hide in the mountain and launch sneak attacks at any time. Once the worms of the void entered the enemy's bodies, the rest would be easier. Okay, Uncle Li had the same idea. Li went into the mountain. Uncle Li held the mountain in one hand and the iron rod in the other hand and rushed into the white haze. As soon as they went in, Uncle Li checked around. What confused him and Li was that everything was peaceful. Not only did they not see Commander Yang, but nothing out of the ordinary happened. They arrived at the Mountain of Demon King easily. The Mountain of Demon King was steep. The entire mountain was shrouded in white haze, faintly visible. There were warriors guarding at the foot of the mountain. When Li teleported out, they took out their iron plates and jade talismans. The warrior checked them and waved his hand. "You can go up now. You only have 1 day. You're not allowed to use force on the mountain, and you're not allowed to touch any of the restrictions on the mountain. Otherwise, you will be killed without exception. Go." There was only 1 day in a year, so the two of them didn't dare to waste such an important opportunity. The Great Demon King was one of the top powerhouses in the second celestial layer. The Tao rhyme she left behind might be able to multiply their strength. At the foot of the mountain, there was a narrow path that meandered upwards. The two of them scanned their surroundings with their divine telekinesis. Unfortunately, the white fog here suppressed the detection of their divine telekinesis, so they could only scan a few hundred meters away. The two of them flew quickly. Although they did not reach their top speed, they were already halfway up the mountain in the blink of an eye. At this point, the white fog was even thicker. They could only see the road under their feet and the endless cliff beside them. Luli suddenly stopped while he was running. He saw a protruding stone peak on the side of the road. A small tree could be vaguely seen on the stone peak. The small tree caught Luli's attention because its needle-like leaves were covered in ice. "What are you waiting for?" Seeing that Luli had stopped, Uncle Lee hurriedly said, "Let's go to the peak, to the stone of Demon King. Time is precious." "Okay." Luli nodded and looked away. He continued to follow Uncle Lee up. That being said, all he could think about was that strange tree. He had a feeling there was some kind of nature's rhythm in the tree. If he could study it, he might be able to learn something. But there was one thing. They were only halfway up the mountain while the stone of Demon King was at the peak. The stone of Demon King contained many powerful Tao rhymes. Many people at the Cloud Mountain had learned powerful fundamental principles from the stone of Demon King. His mind told him that he should go to the peak. His time was precious. He only had one day in a year. If he wasted his time on the tree, he would have to wait for another year. Also, even if he did learn a fundamental principle from a tree, who could tell what level it was? On the off chance that it was a low-level one, he would suffer a great loss. No, after the time for more than a dozen breaths, Li suddenly stopped. Determination was written all over his face as he said, "Uncle Lee, go to the peak. I will go to the stone peak to study." Uncle Lee was surprised. He said, "Don't be impulsive. If you miss this chance, you will have to wait for another year." "It's okay. It's just 1 year." Luli smiled and waved his hand. He turned around and rushed down the mountain. He felt that if he missed this tree, he might not have another chance like this. The stone of Demon King would always be here. If it didn't work out, he could come back next year. He sped up to the extreme, and soon, he was halfway up the mountain. He stepped onto the stone carefully. The stone was long. It protruded from the mountain for more than 300 feet, like the edge of a sword. At the end of the protruding rock was a small tree. The small tree had needle-like leaves. At this moment, all the leaves were frozen, and ice olives hung down from the tree. This was an ordinary scene. There was nothing special about it. There was mist all around, and the temperature was cold. It was normal for the leaves to be frozen. There was nothing special about the stone, either. There were too many of them in the mountain. Luli stood in the middle of the stone. He looked around, and eventually his eyes fell on the tree. To be exact, his eyes fell on the needle-like leaves of the tree. He sensed something strange. Killing intent? Yes, killing intent. Luli's eyes became misty. In his eyes, the leaves of the tree were no longer leaves, but sharp swords. The ice on the leaves was not ice either, but the sword energy outside the swords. It was cold, and the sword energy was horrifying. He didn't even feel that the stone under his feet was a stone, but an invincible sword. There was a surge of killing intent everywhere. It was as if the killing intent was going to tear apart the sky and the void. There is indeed killing intent. But what does it mean? What can I comprehend from this? Luli murmured. He closed his eyes slowly and entered the dreamland. He began to study carefully, hoping that he could learn something from the stone and the small tree. He had a feeling that if he could learn something here, the power would be horrifying. For him, it would be more helpful than the powerful fundamental principle he learned from the stone of Demon King. Rustle, rustle, rustle. What Luli didn't know was that a pretty girl in green walked up from the path behind him. It was the beautiful girl he met by the river at the Green Moon Peak, the one who cheated him of his divine origin gold and called him a fool. Chapter 1846. One day was too short for him. Luli was still in a daze when he was woken up by someone. Uncle Lee came down from the peak and woke Luli up when he passed by. The warriors on the peak ordered Luli and Uncle Lee to go down. "Okay, let's go." Luli walked back in a daze and went down with Uncle Lee. All he could think about was the frozen leaves. He had learned something from the boulders and the leaves, but it was a blur. He felt he was not there yet. It was like a paper window. If he could not break it, he would never see what was inside. Therefore, Luli was still in a daze. He kept thinking about it, and he was taken down by Uncle Lee. When Uncle Lee arrived at the foot of the mountain, he saw that Luli was still in a daze. Uncle Lee had to say, "Go into the mountain first. I will take you back to Mount Cloud." "Okay," Luli answered casually and went into the mountain. As soon as he went in, he closed his eyes and continued to think about what had happened. He didn't care about what was going on outside. He wouldn't even know if Uncle Lee took him out of the Omen Island. Uncle Lee was a bit disappointed. He had gained many inspirations from the Stone of Demon King during the day, but he could not grasp any of them. He felt he had wasted the day and he had learned nothing. Feeling depressed, Xiao Chun felt somewhat dispirited. He quickly rushed towards Heavenly Cloud Mountain, not thinking about anything else. Buzzing, halfway there, the ground suddenly glowed. Uncle Lee was surprised, but he came back to his senses at once. He was surrounded by coldness. He took out his heavy sword and sent a message to Luli at once. "Master, something is wrong." A white light flashed, and Uncle Lee felt the scene in front of him change. He actually appeared in a mountain, and he was shocked. He scanned his surroundings with his divine will, and 4 words escaped his mouth. Teleportation formation. He had stepped into the teleportation formation without knowing it and was teleported here. There could be no teleportation formation between Mount Cloud and the Demon King Mountain. Clearly, it was built by someone. The purpose was clear. Someone was trying to kill them. Ha 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 ha. Someone laughed. 5 people came out from a mountain not far away. A mocking voice came out. "Li Tian, Luli, have you ever thought about this day?" "Commander Yang." Uncle Lee's gaze turned cold as he looked at the middle-aged man with the pigtail in the small mountain. He cursed himself for being too careless. There was nothing wrong when he went, but he didn't expect Commander Yang to tamper with the route. Among the 5 of them, apart from Commander Yang, the other 4 were Second Tribulation Heaven Gods. They did not seem to be soldiers, so they should be the experts of the 18 main peaks of Heavenly Cloud Mountain who had iron plates. If it was just Commander Yang, Li Tian might not be afraid of him. But now, there were 4 more people, and their auras were similar to his. This made Li Tian feel that things were getting tricky. They could only count on Luli. If Luli's Worms of the Void could not kill them, then both of them would die here. "Uncle Lee, what happened?" Luli sent a message. Uncle Lee told Luli about the situation outside. Luli was nervous as well. After a moment of silence, Luli said, "When the fight starts, try to get close to Commander Yang. To catch bandits, first catch the leader. Let's kill Commander Yang first. Then the rest will be easy to deal with." "All right." The flag appeared in Li Tian's hand and the sword in his other hand. He put the mountain in his sleeve so that he could throw it out when Luli was close enough for Luli to sneak up on him. Li Tian. Commander Yang flew over from a mountain with the 4 warriors. He shouted from the distance, "You and Luli surrender to me, and I will spare your lives." "What do you say?" "Surrender?" Uncle Lee thought about it and said, "You want us to be your sole slaves?" "No." Commander Yang waved his hand and said, "You just need to hand over your treasures and interspatial rings. What do you think? Is that good enough for you?" Uncle Lee sneered and said, "If we hand over our treasures and interspatial rings, we will become lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Cut the crap. If you want to fight, let's fight. If you want to kill me, I will drag 1 or 2 of you down with me, even if I have to risk my life." "You can do that?" Commander Yang sneered. Waving his hand, he said, "Since he is so stubborn, then let's send him on his way. Kill him, and then catch that bastard and kill him." Whoosh! The 4 Second Tribulation Heavenly Gods flew over and formed an encirclement around Uncle Lee. The 5 of them took out their weapons. Commander Yang took out a huge axe that gave off a cold glare. It was a primordial treasure. In addition to Commander Yang, there was another warrior with a heavy sword. Clearly, it was a primordial treasure as well. That being said, none of the 5 were wearing primordial treasure armors, which was a relief to Uncle Lee. Otherwise, the fight would be difficult. "Hoi!" Uncle Lee took the initiative to attack. He might not be able to survive the combined attack of the 5. The black flag in his hand began to spin around him, acting as a defensive artifact. His body turned into a streak of black light as he charged towards Commander Yang. "Go to hell," he shouted. With a shrill noise, he hacked at Commander Yang's head with his heavy sword. If Commander Yang didn't retreat, Lu Li would be able to get close to him. By then, Lu Li could release the worms of the void. Swish, to Uncle Li's surprise, Commander Yang stepped back and slid to the left dozens of miles away. He swung his axe at Uncle Li. A ray of black light pierced through the sky and reached Uncle Li in a blink. Commander Yang was cautious. Lu Li had not shown up, and Lu Li had passed the first level of the Tower of Monsters. Therefore, Commander Yang had to be cautious. Commander Yang didn't want to fail miserably. There must be a reason why Commander Yang could survive this long, given that he was such a vengeful leader. Swish, swish, the other 4 warriors attacked as well. They were careful and only used long-range attacks. They were here purely because of Lu Li. They all wanted to know how Lu Li passed the first level of the Tower of Monsters and what kind of treasures he had. Boom, boom, boom. Even though Uncle Li had dodged, he was still hit by 3 attacks. Luckily, they were all long-range attacks that were not powerful. His black flag was a primordial treasure. Even though it was not a defensive artifact, it was strong enough to protect him from 3 attacks without being harmed. Swish, swish, the 5 kept attacking. Uncle Li was at a disadvantage. All he could do was dodge and defend. He could not fight back. If he didn't try his best, he would be wounded immediately. What awaited him in Lu Li was death. Lu Li didn't use psychic power to check. He only used the mountain to sense the situation outside. He saw that Uncle Li could not fight back, let alone approach the enemies. Lu Li was getting anxious. This was not the way to go. Uncle Li's injuries would only worsen. When Uncle Li died, Lu Li would not be able to fight the 5 on his own. "Uncle Li, throw the mountain away. I want to take the initiative," Lu Li shouted. Uncle Li made up his mind and dodged 2 attacks. He waved the flag in his hand, and it flew towards the 2 warriors, wrapping them up. Chapter 1847. Watch out! The 2 warriors behind the flag did not see the mountain behind the flag, but Commander Yang and the others did. Commander Yang knew that Lu Li was about to make a move. Therefore, he shouted. The 2 warriors behind the flag were alarmed. They wanted to take the flag down so that Uncle Li would have 1 less treasure to protect him. However, they sensed the danger as well. Too late. A shout was heard. The mountain glowed as worms of the void whooshed out. They expanded and covered an area with a radius of several miles. The golden worms of the void were too fast. Even though the 2 warriors tried to run, the worms of the void caught up with them. Hundreds of thousands of worms of the void sneaked into their bodies. What the hell is this? A bug has entered my body. The 2 second tribulation heaven gods were alarmed. They attacked the worms coming at them. They twisted and turned to dodge. However, more and more worms entered their bodies. "No!" Lu Li bellowed. The worms in their bodies began to gnaw at them. The 2 second tribulation divine gods cried out miserably. They rolled around in midair. One of them shouted, "Commander Yang, help me." Hiss, hiss, Commander Yang and the other saw one of the second tribulation heaven gods' legs turning into bones. Then the bones disappeared. They were all gnawed away. After the evolution, the teeth of the worms were much sharper. This heaven god used all his divine energy to protect his head and body, but not his limbs. Soon, the man became a ball of flesh. Even the bones in his hands and feet were gone. The excruciating pain was excruciating. He rolled around in midair and screamed. His screams were so miserable that Commander Yang and the others' hearts were pounding. The other one seemed to be in a better state. He seemed to have some kind of skill that could suppress the worms of the void. Therefore, he was not bitten. But as time went on, more and more worms of the void swarmed in. After the time for 3 breaths, the man began to bleed from his eyes, nose, and mouth. Then he rolled his eyes and fell down like a broken sack. He was dead. Hiss, hiss, seeing that the dead second tribulation god's body was quickly gnawed to the bones, and then all the bones were gnawed away. The eyes of the remaining 3 were filled with fear. Apart from Commander Yang, the other 2 already had thoughts of retreating. The combat strength of the 4 of them was about the same. Since the two of them couldn't stop the yellow insect, the two of them might not be able to either. Even though they were here out of respect for Commander Yang, they were not enemies of Lu Li and Uncle Li. Naturally, they would not risk their lives. The two tribulation heaven god could not stand it anymore. His head was bitten off. Lu Li shouted, "Uncle Li!" Uncle Li fiercely began his counterattack. His target was a second tribulation heavenly god. His body shot out like an arrow, and the heavy sword in his hand swung out at lightning speed. That person did not escape immediately and was easily held back by Uncle Li. Whoosh, Commander Yang and the other warrior rushed over, trying to kill Uncle Li and then figure out a way to deal with Lu Li. Lu Li flew the mountain over, and the worms of the void swarmed over as well. The golden worms of the void were so fast that they reached them in the blink of an eye. Bang! Uncle Li was smashed away by Commander Yang. One of his arms was cut off. Lu Li flew the mountain over and shouted, "Uncle Li!" The mountain glowed and took Uncle Li in. Many worms of the void dashed out from the mountain. This time, Lu Li let out 10 million at once, and they dashed to all sides. Run! Commander Yang's pupils constricted. His body turned into a stream of light and rushed underground. He took a detour and narrowly escaped the encirclement of the worms of the void. He dashed into the ground and vanished. The other two warriors were in a worse state. One of them was stalled by Uncle Li, and the other was caught up by the worms of the void. They could not run away even if they wanted to. Some of the worms of the void entered their bodies and began to gnaw at them. The excruciating pain prevented them from running away. They had to find a way to contain the worms of the void. The two warriors were quite capable. They could contain the worms of the void that entered their bodies for the time being. However, there were too many worms of the void. Lu Li let out 10 million worms of the void. As more and more worms of the void swarmed into their bodies, the two warriors could not hold it in any longer. Just like the first warrior, their limbs were bitten off. Their fates were sealed. After the time for a few breaths, the two warriors cried out in pain. They were reduced to bones, and then their bones were eaten up. Some worms of the void glowed and split up. Did Commander Yang run away? Lu Li used psychic power to check. Commander Yang was nowhere to be found. Lu Li sighed. Commander Yang was too cautious. He would run away as soon as something went wrong. There was a reason why he could become a commander and survive until now. Whoosh! Lu Li flew the mountain down and collected the interspatial rings of the warriors. Their weapons were all on the mountain. One of them had a heavy sword of chaos. Lu Li took it as well. "Uncle Li, this is yours." Lu Li waved the sword and threw it to Uncle Li. He was used to using sabers, not swords, not heavy swords. One of Uncle Li's hands was cut off. He took over the sword with the other hand and asked in surprise, "Master, you don't need it? Are you giving it to me?" This time, it was all thanks to Lu Li that they could kill the four warriors. What was more, Uncle Li was Lu Li's sole slave. Lu Li should be the first to use the good stuff. How could Lu Li give it to Uncle Li without hesitation? "I told you that when I am at the second heaven, I will get you a set of chaos if I have the chance." Lu Li did not mind. He had always been like this with treasures. If he could not use them, he would give them to his family and friends. What was the point of keeping them? If they were killed, then the enemies would take advantage of them. With this heavy sword, Uncle Li's abilities would be enhanced. With Uncle Li's abilities improved, Lu Li would be safer. "Don't waste time. Take care of your wounds. I will fly away now." Lu Li waved his hand. He used psychic power to collect all the worms of the void. Then he flew the mountain away, keeping a low profile. He did not know where he was now, but he could not be far away. It was just a temporary teleportation formation, so it could only be dozens of thousands of miles away. Lu Li circled around. After a few thousand miles, he saw a towering mountain in the distance. It was the Mountain of Clouds. It was close. Lu Li didn't want to wait for Uncle Li to recover. He flew out from the mountain and flew through the mountains toward the Mountain of Clouds in a low-key manner. Many warriors were hiding outside the Mountain of Clouds. Some of them used psychic power to check, but none dared to do anything when they saw the iron token and jade talisman on Lu Li's waist. Who would dare to kill warriors of the Mountain of Clouds, outside the Mountain of Clouds, unless they were tired of living? Chapter 1848. Trying to make a false accusation again. Luli put on a mocking smile. It was Commander Yang who besieged them first. Even if they did, they were outside White Cloud Mountain, and it was not against the rules of White Cloud Mountain. What excuse could Commander Yang use to frame them? After pondering for a moment, he sent a sound transmission to Uncle Li before walking over with large strides. He kept a low profile and did not rush toward Commander Yang. Instead, he planned to circle around him. "You stop." When they were close to the warriors, Commander Yang suddenly shouted. Luli stopped and looked at Commander Yang with a mocking look. "Commander Yang, what can I do for you?" Captain Yang said coldly. "Someone reported that you used evil magic to kill fellow disciples. Men, arrest him and send him to the hall of beheadings and executions." "Ha ha!" Luli felt like he had heard the funniest joke in the world. He laughed and said, "Someone reported me? You reported it yourself, didn't you? Killing a fellow disciple? Even if I killed a fellow disciple, did I do in Mount Tianyin? Which rule of Sky Cloud Mountain did I break?" Commander Yang took out a bamboo slip and opened it. "The 12th iron law of Sky Cloud Mountain. Those who maliciously kill fellow disciples and endanger the safety of Sky Cloud Mountain disciples can be sentenced to death after being interrogated by the Hall of Penal Code." Malicious intent. Luli smiled again. He stared at Commander Yang and said, "Commander Yang, are you sure you want to take me to the Hall of Penal Laws? Aren't you afraid of your affairs being exposed? At that time, you might be the one to die. What could happen to me? What a joke. I'm going to the Hall of Beheadings and Executions to see the elders." A group of warriors came over, but Luli did not fight back. If he resisted, Commander Yang could convict him of an even greater crime. At that time, he would mobilize a large number of soldiers to surround him, and he would die without a doubt. He was bound by 2 soldiers with black iron chains and pulled inside. Commander Yang walked at the very front with a righteous look on his face. He didn't look guilty at all. Ugh, Luli could not figure it out. Where did Commander Yang get his confidence? When the time came, he would apply for a soul search, and if he did, the scene would be exposed. He was the victim of a conspiracy. Commander Yang would probably die a tragic death, wouldn't he? If that was the case, why was Commander Yang so calm? What did he have to rely on? Luli couldn't understand. A group of people flew towards one of the main peaks in a grandiose manner, attracting many onlookers. Luli was chained up by a sergeant. Clearly, he had committed a crime. When Luli and the others flew past the Tower of Demon Entrapment, they attracted even more onlookers. Many people had lost a lot of divine origin gold to Luli. "Let's go take a look." The red-haired old man frowned. He had a good impression of Luli. When Luli explored the first level of the Tower of Monsters, he earned more than 10,000 divine origin gold. Now Luli was captured. He naturally wanted to find out what was going on. As soon as the old dragon left, a group of people followed suit. They all headed toward Star Peak, where the Hall of Beheadings and Executions was. There were many experts living on the Dipper Star Peak. Some of them were also alarmed as they walked towards the castle. They'd spent a long time here. Apart from cultivating, they would explore the Tower of Demon Entrapment or go to the Demon Mountain. It was a rare chance for them to see something interesting. Naturally, they would not miss it. Luli was taken to a castle. Commander Yang asked a sergeant to send message. Seeing so many onlookers, Commander Yang waved his hand with a frown and said, "Go and cultivate. There is nothing to see here." Everyone ignored Commander Yang's words. He was just a commander, not a patriarch. Nobody was afraid of him. The old dragon and the other powerful warriors even snorted, showing no respect. The gate of the castle was opened. A dignified voice came out. "What is it?" Commander Yang bowed and said, "Patriarch Yu, someone has killed a fellow disciple. We have taken him down. Patriarch, please convict him." "Patriarch Yu?" The old dragon raised his eyebrows. He asked someone next to him, "Isn't Patriarch Nyo the patriarch of the Hall of Beheadings and Executions? How come it is Patriarch Yu?" A powerful warrior answered in a low voice. I think Patriarch Neo left the Omen Island for some business. So, there's a new Patriarch. Bring him in. Patriarch Yu's dignified voice came from inside. Commander Yang waved his hand to ask most of the warriors to stand outside. Together with 2 warriors, Commander Yang dragged Lu Li in. The decorations in the castle were dark, giving people a sense of oppression. In the main hall sat an old man with a long beard. His eyebrows were like swords and his eyes were like bells, giving him a ferocious look. After Commander Yang and the warriors bowed to Patriarch Yu, he looked at Lu Li coldly and said, "Kneel and salute the Patriarch. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I?" Lu Li answered coldly. Then he bowed and said, "Patriarch Yu, I didn't do anything wrong. Commander Yang is framing me. Please look into the details." "How dare you?" Patriarch Yu snorted angrily. He was filled with killing intent as he shouted, "You are at the Hall of Beheadings, and you dare to be so arrogant? Kneel or not, I will break your legs if you don't." Lu Li was speechless. Patriarch Yu was trying to put him in his place without distinguishing right from wrong. Suppressing his anger, Lu Li said, "Patriarch Yu, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not a sinner. Please don't listen to Commander Yang's side of the story." Whoosh. Patriarch Yu suddenly moved his hand. A glaring glare came out like a ray of sword light and reached Lu Li's left leg in an instant. Bang! The ray of light was like a relic weapon. Lu Li's physical defense was strong. Even so, his left calf was cut off by the ray of sword light. Lu Li felt a sharp pain on his left leg. He fell to the ground. What? People were in an uproar. Patriarch Yu cut off Lu Li's leg without saying a word, which shocked many people. But on second thought, some people understood. Patriarch Yu had just been promoted, and this was the first time he had to deal with the affairs of the Hall of Beheadings. He needed to establish his authority and awe others. Lu Li happened to be uncooperative, so he turned to Lu Li as an example. Ha ha ha. Lu Li was tied up by the iron chains, so he could only fall to the ground. One of his legs was cut off and blood was gushing out. However, he didn't seem to be in pain. Instead, he was sneering. A broken leg was not a big deal. It would grow back in a couple of days. What Lu Li was worried about was, would the Patriarch Yu listen to Commander Yang's side of the story and kill him directly? Tell me the details. Patriarch Yu didn't even look at Lu Li and said to Commander Yang. Commander Yang bowed and said, "Patriarch Yu, here is the thing. Today, we received a report that someone was killing people near the Cloud Mountain. His target was an iron token disciple of the Cloud Mountain. That person happened to pass by and recorded it with a crystal. He said that Lu Li has some evil skills, and he has many vicious beasts that devour the bodies of powerful warriors so that the beasts can evolve. Lu Li happened to come back, so we took him down and brought him to Patriarch Yu." Vicious beasts? Chapter 1849. Memory Crystal? Lu Li frowned. Someone just happened to pass by? Of course not. The memory crystal should be something like a stamped stone that could record a certain moment. Commander Yang must have done something to it. Where is the memory crystal? Patriarch Yu made a gesture. Commander Yang took out a white stone and presented it to Patriarch Yu. Divine energy glowed in Patriarch Yu's hand as the white stone glowed. A ray of white light shot into the sky above the castle. It was the scene where Lu Li chased after the 2 second tribulation heaven gods. Countless golden worms flew out from the mountain and surrounded the 2 second tribulation heaven gods. The marks of the iron tokens on the waists of the 2 second tribulation heaven gods could be seen clearly. They were from the mountain of cloud. The 2 warriors cried out in pain. Soon, their hands and feet were bitten off. Then, their bodies were reduced to bones. The golden worms split up. Lu Li came out and grabbed their interspatial rings. Clearly, Commander Yang had secretly recorded the scene with the memory crystal after he escaped underground. He ran away as soon as he finished recording and stopped Lu Li outside the mountain of cloud. There were only Lu Li and the 2 second tribulation heaven gods in the video. Uncle Li and Commander Yang were not there. The video lasted for only a few breaths. That being said, The tragic scene when the two died and the scene of the golden worms splitting up were still engraved in everyone's mind. Raising vicious parasites to devour the bodies of powerful warriors to evolve and split up. Speaking of which, this was evil. If Luli had secretly released the worms at the Mountain of Cloud, many would have been bitten to death. If there were trillions of worms and they had evolved to become more powerful, everyone at the Mountain of Cloud could have died, of course. That was only part of the idea. Some didn't think it was a big deal. After all, the worms were just Luli's means. Every warrior had their own means. Luli was killing people outside the Mountain of Cloud, which was not against the rules of the Mountain of Cloud. That is vicious. Patriarch put away the crystal of memory, stared at Luli coldly, and said, "At such a young age, you have raised such vicious insects. You are so evil and impetuous. If you are allowed to develop, I don't know how many people will be eaten by your insects or killed by you for no reason." Luli's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly understood something. He had never understood why Commander Yang dared to bring him to the Hall of Penal Laws. Wasn't he afraid of his affairs being exposed? What did he have to rely on? He finally understood. Elder Yu was Commander Yang's backer. Elder Yu should be Commander Yang's backer, which was why Commander Yang was so unscrupulous. Luli was not in a hurry to refute. Instead, he was deep in thoughts, trying to figure out a solution. Both sides were in a game, and the referee was on the other side. If they were not careful today, they would suffer a crushing defeat. "Luli, what do you want to say?" Seeing that Luli didn't say anything, Patriarch said coldly, "If you have nothing else to say, then I will pronounce the sentence." "Yes," Luli replied calmly. "I want to search my soul, mine and Commander Yang's soul. Also, there's another person in my interspatial artifact who also experienced the battle. I want to search his soul as well. Only after the soul's search will the truth be revealed to the world. Otherwise, I won't accept it. Even if I die, I will die a wrongful death." Buzz. The mountain in Luli's sleeve glowed. Uncle Lee was teleported out. Uncle Lee's hand was still cut off, so he had learned everything from inside. As soon as he came out, he dropped to one knee and said, "Patriarch, it was Commander Yang who cut off my hand. I want to search my soul. If you can search my soul, everything will be revealed. We are innocent." What? It became noisy again. Luli and Uncle Lee's insistence on searching his soul indicated that there must be injustice. Uncle Lee said his hand was cut off by Commander Yang. It was Commander Yang who reported this. Was there something fishy going on here? Okay. Patriarch nodded. He stood up and said, "Who do you want to search first?" "It doesn't matter who," Luli said at this moment. He said with a straight face, "I want to ask other patriarchs of Mount Cloud to search my soul. Patriarch, please stay out of this." "Stay out of this?" Patriarch's expressions changed. He said angrily, "I am the Patriarch of the Hall of Penal Law of Mount Cloud. I make decisions on all matters of criminal law. You want me to stay out of this? Are you questioning my impartiality? Are you courting death?" "That's right," Luli said in a tit-for-tat manner. "I just don't trust you. If you are innocent, why don't you let other patriarchs search your soul? You are the chief judge. You should be objective and judge based on evidence. You shouldn't be the one to get involved and get evidence." "How dare you?" Patriarch was enraged. His hand glowed as he shouted, "How dare you question my integrity? You cannot be pardoned." "Ha ha ha ha." Luli laughed without any fear. He stared at Patriarch and said, "Kill me if you want. There's so many eyes watching. How dare you kill me before you get to the bottom of this? This is enough to prove that you colluded with Commander Yang to murder us. You, the master of the Hall of Penal Law, are unjust, and unobjective. Who at Mount Cloud will listen to you in the future? If you want to kill me, you must make me accept it wholeheartedly. The Hall of Penal Law is unfair, and I will not accept it." Luli shouted the last few words with dragon roar. His voice was like a dragon's roar, spreading to an area with a radius of more than 3,000 miles. Many people in closed-door cultivation were startled awake. Many people flew out from hundreds of castles and gathered toward the Hall of Penal Law. "Die!" Patriarch could not stand it anymore. Luli's roar must have alarmed all the big shots at the heaven cloud's peak. Patriarch, you didn't care anymore. He swung his hand and smashed at Luli's head. Whoosh! At that moment, a beam of light shone in the distant sky. Following that, a small leaf flew over. It was so fast that the old dragon couldn't even see it clearly. In an instant, it struck Elder Yu's hand, knocking him back by more than one zhang. A faintly discernible voice said, "If you're not satisfied and you are unjust, why don't you try it before you execute?" Swish, 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 Patriarch Yu's face turned pale. The old dragon and the others were surprised. When they saw a blurry figure in midair, they dropped to one knee and said, "Greetings, fairy maiden. Greetings, fairy maiden." The others came to their senses and knelt down. Luli glanced over and saw a blurry figure. Seeing how the others were behaving, Luli felt more confident. This must be the owner of Mount Cloud, Fairy Maiden. Patriarch Chun, Fairy Maiden said, "Get involved. Mount Cloud is a reasonable place. We will not wrongly accuse anyone. Even if we're going to kill someone, we must make sure that the person is convinced of his death." Fairy Maiden, you are so wise. The old dragon and the others flattered her. Patriarch Yu and Leader Yang, on the other hand, were taken aback. They didn't expect that Fairy Maiden would be alarmed by such a trivial matter. She even sent the number 1 Patriarch to intervene. Buzzing, the space outside the Hall of Penal Law began to tremble. A white-haired old man suddenly appeared. He was old and lethargic, as if he could die any moment. That being said, his eyes were so sharp that nobody dared to look at him. Chapter 1850. The old man glanced over. His hands glowed as he stared at Luli. The people outside were stunned. Was Patriarch Chun going to kill Luli? Was Luli not wronged? Fairy Tianyun just said that Luli must be convinced even at the cost of his life. Patriarch Chun wanted to kill Luli without asking any questions? Phew. Luli was relieved, because Patriarch Chun didn't show any killing intent. If he were going to kill someone, there would be some. Whoosh! Patriarch Chun waved his hand. A ray of white light cut off the iron chains on Luli. Patriarch Chun took out a top-level pellet, gave it to Luli, and said, "Heal your wounds first." The people outside were stunned. Then they all looked at Commander Yang and Patriarch Yu. Patriarch Chun untied Luli and gave him the pellet. It meant that Luli was not guilty. Then, Commander Yang and Patriarch Yu were guilty. Patriarch Chun looked at Commander Yang as well and said coldly, "Yang He, do you know what you have done?" Commander Yang's heart skipped a beat. Patriarch Chun's words were calm, but he was under great pressure. Patriarch Chun was like a mountain. If Commander Yang could not handle it well, he would be crushed into pieces. Confess? He would die for sure. After all, Fairy Tianyun was alarmed. There were so many people outside. If he didn't give an explanation, he would not be able to convince the public. Commander Yang thought quickly. He clenched his teeth, cupped his fists, and said, "Patriarch Chun, Yang He has been conscientious and has been enforcing the law impartially. May I know what I've done wrong?" "You are so stubborn." Commander Chun sneered, but did not continue to question him. He looked at Elder Yu and said, "Elder Yu, the goddess is here. We can't hide this matter anymore. Explain yourself, and don't make a mistake." Patriarch Yu looked awful. After a moment, he dropped to his knees and said, "Fairy Tianyun, I am guilty. I am from the same universe as Yang He, and we are old friends. Therefore, he asked me for a favor a few days ago. He said that Luli has some evil skills, and he was afraid that Mount Cloud would be in turmoil. That is why I have made such a big mistake. Please punish me." What? Patriarch Yu had confessed. The truth was out. How could a commander collude with a patriarch to murder civilians of Mount Cloud? This was too vile. This caused many people outside to feel quite indignant. However, since Fairy Tianyun had come out today, she would definitely give everyone an explanation. Everyone looked at Fairy Tianyun in anticipation. Elder Chin looked at Commander Yang and said coldly, "Yang, are you still not going to plead guilty? I'll give you a chance. If you confess now, you'll only be guilty. If you don't plead guilty, Your whole family may be in danger. Ah, Commander Yang's body trembled. He had a family in Mount Skycloud, 2 wives and 3 children. If he didn't confess, all of them would have to die. Commander Yang's expression changed. He knelt down heavily a few times and said in a sorrowful voice, I confess. I framed Lu Li and Li Tian. It is all my fault. Patriarchy has nothing to do with this. I beg Patriarchy. I will take full responsibility. Oomph. A cold snort rang out. Fairy Tianyun, who was outside, said, Since the matter has been clarified, let's deal with it according to the law. Elder Yu will be stripped of his position and thrown into the dungeon for 100 years. Yang, he will be executed in public. Take them down. Patriarch Chun waved his hand. 4 warriors came in and took Patriarch Yu and Yang he into custody. The 2 of them were powerful. If they fought back, the 2 warriors wouldn't be able to hold them down. But how could they fight back? They would be killed by Fairy Tianyun in one move. At the very least, even if Commander Yang could run away, what about his wife and children? Commander Yang accepted his fate. He hung his head low like a frosted eggplant. But when he glanced at Lu Li, his eyes were filled with viciousness and hatred. Phew. Lu Li exhaled again. With Yang he executed, he was completely safe at Mount Skycloud. After this, nobody would dare to make things difficult for him anymore. Cut. Commander Chen walked out. A saber appeared in his hand, and he cut at Commander Yang's head, who was still on his knees. With one move, Commander Yang's head flew up. He was decisive and didn't waste any words. Carry the body away and make an announcement to all civilians. Patriarch Chen put away his saber and waved his hand. Several warriors carried Commander Yang's body away. Patriarch Chen turned to Fairy Tianyun. Since the shadow of Fairy Tianyun was still there, she must have something to say. As expected, after Commander Yang's body was carried away and Patriarchy was taken away, Fairy Tianyun said, If there is punishment, there will be rewards. This time, it is our fault for not managing things well. Lu Li, Li Tian, you have been wronged. Therefore, I have decided to give you some compensation. Li Tian, I will give you 3 more chances to go to the Demon Mountain. You can go there for 3 days each time. Li Tian was surprised and then overjoyed. 3 times in 3 days. That was 9 times. This was a precious gift from the Demon King. Li Tian dropped to his knees and kowtowed. Many people outside flattered Fairy Tianyun, saying she was kind and generous. Lu Li, Fairy Tianyun continued, You have been wronged the most. I will make it up to you. You can go to the primordial realm once. You can stay there for a month. It will be up to your luck if you can learn something. When you are healed, you can come to the peak of Mount Skycloud to find me. All of a sudden, everyone quieted down. Many were stunned. Then, many were filled with envy and jealousy. Some of them even had tears in their eyes. What did Lu Li do? How could he be so loved by Fairy Tianyun? Did Fairy Tianyun like Lu Li? The primordial realm. Only those who could go to the primordial realm could pass the 5th level of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment. In history, only one person had passed the 5th level of the Tower of Demon Imprisonment and got a chance to go to the primordial realm. Now, Lu Li was the second one. There were so many people at the Mount Skycloud. How many times had they tried the Tower of Demon Imprisonment? They risked their lives and danced on the line between life and death many times. Yet they could not pass the 5th level. Lu Li was merely being wronged and suffering some grievances. Why would Fairy Tianyun reward him so generously? Many people felt it was unfair. If it were not for the prestige of Fairy Tianyun, they would have questioned it out loud. Lu Li was taken aback as well. He was satisfied that Fairy Tianyun could enforce the law impartially and kill Commander Yang. It would be better if she could give him some compensation, such as going to the Demon King Mountain several times like Uncle Li did. Now, Fairy Tianyun wanted to give him a chance to go to the primordial realm. Even Lu Li himself couldn't accept this because the compensation was too heavy. It didn't conform to normal logic at all, which made him feel unsure. There was no such thing as gratuitous hatred in this world, nor was there any such thing as gratuitous love. Fairy Tianyun's actions made Lu Li feel uneasy. Aren't you going to thank the fairy? Uncle Li's voice woke Lu Li up. Anyway, he should thank her first. How could he miss such a good chance? Even if there were some tricks up his sleeve, he should accept it first. One of Lu Li's legs was broken, so he could not get up. He had to bow and say, "Thank you, Fairy Tianyun." Buzzing, Fairy Tianyun said nothing more. She didn't give any explanation. Her shadow disappeared in midair. People were talking about it. They were still looking at Lu Li with envy and jealousy. There is no such thing as a pie in the sky, only a knife. Chapter 1851. He went out for a trip and was ambushed. He managed to escape with his life, only to be framed. In the end, it was a blessing in disguise as he obtained a chance to enter the primordial mystic realm. When Lu Li came back, he felt uneasy. He was treating his wounds and thinking about it at the same time. It was strange. He and Fairy Tianyun did not know each other. So why was the fairy so fond of him? Could it be that she had fallen for him? That was impossible. He wasn't the kind of handsome young man that everyone liked. He wasn't narcissistic enough to think that all women would fall in love with him. Fairy Tianyun had been famous for many years, and she was deeply doted on by the great demon king. She was very powerful, and if she liked everyone she saw, she would have already had 3,000 men. Jiang Yi had never heard of any romantic affairs of Fairy Tianyun before he came here. Earlier on, everyone was just jealous and envious, and they didn't really suspect that Fairy Tianyun liked him. This meant that Fairy Tianyun wasn't such a person. If that was the case, what special ability did he have that was worthy of Fairy Tianyun's love? What did Fairy Tianyun want from him? Lu Li couldn't figure it out. The more he couldn't figure it out, the more apprehensive he felt. Lu Li was the type of person who didn't like to receive favors from others. If someone was nice to him for no reason, it would make him feel uneasy. He had been recuperating for 7 to 8 days, and his legs had grown back, but he still hadn't calmed down. Forget it. Let's not think about it anymore. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Don't tell me this isn't a bad thing. Lu Li shook his head. He was not in a hurry to go to the peak to find Fairy Tianyun and go to the primordial secret realm. Instead, he planned to cultivate for some time. Fairy Tianyun had already made her promise. Regardless of whether he went or not, he would honor it. He had comprehended something in the Demon King Mountain. He was prepared to cultivate for a period of time and completely break through that layer of window paper. After stabilizing himself, he would head to the primordial mystic realm. Biting off more than one can chew. Rice had to be eaten bite by bite. He had yet to comprehend this true intent. If he were to head to the primordial mystic realm now, he would be wasting this opportunity. After saying a few words to Li Tian, he went into closed-door cultivation. He had entered the dreamland. He sensed a murderous aura from the Demon King Mountain's protrusions and a very special charm from the leaves and the protrusions. However, in his hazy state, he was unable to pierce through that layer of window paper, unable to determine what exactly he had comprehended. Killing intent? Sword intent? Frost? What's the connection? Lu Li couldn't figure this out. He felt like there was a connection between these things. The scene within the boulder was a whole, but he could not understand the essential connection between these things. If he could figure out, he might be able to grasp this point. Lu Li was cultivating. It was quite lively outside. Almost everyone that was not cultivating was talking about Lu Li and Li Tian. Lu Li killed a team leader, abolished a patriarch, and was given the chance to enter the primordial realm. Such a big event naturally attracted a lot of attention. The most important thing was the primordial mystic realm. Many people had risked their lives to enter the Yao Ceiling Pagoda in order to obtain this opportunity. Many had died in the Yao Ceiling Pagoda. In hundreds of thousands of years, only one person had passed the 5th level of the Yao Ceiling Pagoda. If Lu Li could pass the 5th level of the Tower of Monsters, maybe they would be convinced. Right now, Lu Li had only suffered some grievances and received such a huge compensation. Everyone wanted to find a commander to accuse them, although many people were unconvinced and envious. But who dared to say anything about Fairy Tianyun? It was Fairy Tianyun's freedom to take whomever she wanted to the primordial realm. They waited for half a month, but Luli didn't come out. Many people were speechless. It was such a good opportunity. If it were someone else, they would have gone to the mountain of clouds. One must strike while the iron was hot. What if Fairy Tianyun had forgotten about it after half a year? A month later, the mountain of clouds quieted down. Many people began to admire Luli's patience. He didn't come out for a month. Others wouldn't have been able to do that. 2 months later, Luli still hadn't come out. Many people were speechless. Someone wondered if Luli had lost his mind in cultivation and had forgotten about it. Luli was still cultivating, and he had forgotten about it. In the dreamland, he had forgotten about everything in the outside world. He was immersed in cultivation. In 2 months, he finally made a step forward. He had grasped the basics of a fundamental principle. He didn't know what it was exactly. He just felt he had opened a window. As for what was outside, he had to study further. That being said, this fundamental principle had something to do with killing intent, frost, and sword energy. He was sure that this was an offensive fundamental principle. It should be quite powerful. Sword energy of frost. This fundamental principle could freeze enemies as well, which was similar to his relic weapon. But this was just Luli's speculation. To fully understand the function of this fundamental principle and whether it was powerful or not, Luli could only understand it after he mastered it. I should be able to stabilize it after 2 more months. A true intent required time to reach the large success stage, especially when this true intent was complex. Luli decided to spend another 2 months. When this fundamental principle was stabilized, he would go to the peak of heaven clouds to find Fairy Tianyun. Uncle Li was getting impatient, while Luli was cultivating leisurely. But Luli had activated the inhibition formation in his room and told Uncle Li not to disturb him. Uncle Li couldn't make the decision on his own. He had to wait anxiously outside. Luli had 3 chances to go to the Demon King Mountain, but he didn't want to go now. He wanted to wait for a while and let everything settle down before he went to the Demon King Mountain quietly. What if something happened on the way? What if someone got jealous and tried to kill him on the way? Another 2 months passed. Finally, Luli came out from cultivation. The moment he opened the door, Uncle Li almost burst into tears. Luli had been in closed-door cultivation for 4 months. What if Fairy Tianyun lost her patience and canceled this benefit? At that time, Luli would have wasted an opportunity. Master, when are you going to the primordial realm? Uncle Li asked at once. Luli sat down leisurely, took a sip of tea, and said, I will rest for a couple of days. I will go when I am at my peak. 2 more days? Uncle Li rolled his eyes. What's the hurry? Luli waved his hand and said, What is mine will be mine, and what is not mine will not help. After the tea, Luli went to his room, took a shower, changed, and had a good night's sleep. 2 days later, he walked out, waved to Uncle Li, and said, I'm going to the peak of heaven clouds. Wait for me here. Okay, master, have a good trip. Uncle Li clasped his fists and watched Luli leave. He was excited. Could Luli's abilities be improved by leaps and bounds in the primordial realm? Uncle Li was looking forward to it. Luli found a team of warriors and told them that he wanted to go to the peak of heaven clouds. The warriors all knew Luli, and they were very polite to him. He had defeated a patriarch and killed a team leader. Even Fairy Tianyun was taking care of him. How could they offend him? Brother Lu, come with me. I will show you to the top of the peak of heaven clouds. A team leader said to Luli politely and showed him to the peak of heaven clouds in person. Chapter 1852. The heaven clouds peak was really high. That was what Luli felt after he climbed for an hour. The leader in front of him didn't dare to go too fast, so he had to take 1 step at a time. Luli had to take it 1 step at a time. Therefore, they hadn't reached the peak even after an hour. Luli walked on the winding path. He felt he was walking on clouds. Around him was thick mist. Visibility was less than 300 feet. Cold wind was blowing, making him feel like he was walking on air. Along the way, Luli found many castles. There were people living in those castles, and some psychic power could be sensed. But nobody stood in his way. It was a peaceful journey. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, Luli finally reached the peak. The first thing he did was to take a deep breath. He wanted to see if the rumor was true, that one breath could increase divine energy. He took a deep breath and sensed for a while. He found that his divine power had indeed increased slightly. The air he inhaled contained rich Xian energy in heaven and earth. Some of the Xian energy entered his body and entered his energy channels. Naturally, it could increase divine energy. TSK, it is great to live here, Luli exclaimed. He didn't have to worry about divine energy here. Also, living in such rich Xian energy all year round, one's body could be strengthened as well. The peak was a wonderful place for cultivation. This place is comparable to the primordial mystery realm. How horrifying is the primordial mystery realm, which is more advanced than the primordial mystery realm. Luli could not imagine how fast his cultivation would be if he could go to the primordial mystery realm often. It was no wonder that the super clans could produce such monstrous geniuses. The resources they possessed were just too good. Let's go, the leader said. Luli followed the leader forward. As he looked around, he couldn't help but exclaim again. This place did look like a fairyland. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but mist. In the mist, many beautiful palaces rose up from ground. They were faintly discernible. This place was no different from the fairyland in legends. The leader showed Luli to a huge palace right in front of him where there were 2 warriors guarding. They seemed to be average warriors, but they were more powerful than the leader. The team leader bowed and told them about Luli. One of them looked at Luli and said, "Okay, you can leave now." The leader bowed and left. A warrior said to Luli, "Wait here. I will go and report to Fairy Lu." The warrior went in. Luli stood at the gate of the palace calmly. He wore an ordinary green robe, and his hair was as white as snow. He looked somewhat like an enlightened expert. The other sergeant nodded. There was a reason why Fairy Tianyun liked Luli so much. At the very least, many people didn't have this kind of bearing. After waiting for the time it took for 2 incense sticks to burn, the soldier walked out and said, "The fairy wants you to go in. Come with me." "Thank you, my lord." Luli bowed. The warrior showed Luli in. The palace was not as splendid as he had imagined. Instead, it was simple and elegant. The owner of the palace had good taste. There was no one in the main hall. The soldier led them through a side door and into a side hall. After arriving at the side hall, the soldier said, "Wait here." With that said, the warrior left. Luli stood in the side hall, not daring to move or sit down. He just waited in silence. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, an ethereal voice suddenly came. "You are quite patient. You came to me after 4 months. Aren't you afraid that I will go back on my word?" Luli's heart skipped a beat, but he acted as if nothing had happened. He bowed and said, "You are a great person. You will not go back on your word. I was not prepared, and I was afraid that I would let your kindness down. That is why I took a bit longer. Please forgive me. You're good with words." The voice came again. It was very ethereal. Luli could not tell the original voice. He only knew that it was a girl's voice. "Are you curious? Why would I treat you so well?" This question had been bothering Luli for a long time. He didn't expect that Fairy Tianyun would say it directly. Luli didn't try to hide it. He cupped his fists and said, "Yes, how can I deserve this? I'm not afraid that you would think so highly of me." Ha. Fairy Tianyun smiled and transmitted a message. "If I say, this fairy has taken a fancy to you and wants to take you as my gigolo, I wonder if you will be shocked." Luli was shocked, as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. What kind of person was Fairy Tianyun? Luli thought she should be a mighty and domineering warrior. He didn't expect that she would say such frivolous words. Could it be? But soon, Luli came back to his senses. Fairy Tianyun must be teasing him, or else she wouldn't say such words. He forced a smile, cupped his fists, and said, "Please don't tease me. I am scared." Ha. Fairy Tianyun chuckled. After a while, she said, "Okay, let's stop joking. There's a reason why I want you to go to the Chaos Secret Realm. In 7 years, I want you to go to the Chaos Island and fight in the Arena of Geniuses. Fight? The Chaos Island? The Arena of Geniuses. Luli was surprised. He remembered that Uncle Lee told him that the Chaos Secret Realm would be open once every 100 years. Before each opening, there would be a contest of geniuses. Only the top 30 could go in. He didn't expect that Fairy Tianyun would let him participate in this contest. Yes, Fairy Baiyun said, not only do you have to fight in the Arena of Geniuses, you also have to kill someone for me. If you cannot kill him, I will kill you. What? The last 3 words of Fairy Baiyun were filled with coldness. Luli's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that Fairy Baiyun was not joking. There was a perfect explanation for why she treated him so well. Fairy Baiyun needed a young man to fight in the Arena of Geniuses and to kill someone fair and square. That was why she was spending so much resources to train him. If Luli could not help her achieve her wish, then all her efforts would be in vain. She would make Luli pay with his life. Luli held his breath and thought about it. After a while, he asked, Fairy Baiyun, can I ask who you want to kill? What is his comprehensive strength now? His name is Yun Kaiwa, 106 years old this year. Fairy Baiyun didn't hide anything. She said, maybe you haven't heard of his name, but I didn't tell you. His father is the master of the Saint Origin Palace, Yin Shueishue. He is the most powerful among the young generation of the Saint Origin Palace. He had just passed his 3rd heavenly tribulation last year. What? Li's expression changed. Even though he had guessed that the person Fairy Baiyun wanted him to kill was not a nobody, he didn't expect him to have such a powerful background. More importantly, this person was a 3 tribulation heaven god. Was he someone Luli could kill? Luli didn't know how strong a 3 tribulation heaven god was, but the worm of void couldn't even scratch a 3 tribulation heaven god's body. With his strength, a 3 tribulation heaven god could kill him in one move. I will give you 2 choices. Chapter 1853. Of the 2 choices, there was only one. Luli wouldn't have the courage to leave the Omen Island. As soon as he left the island, Yin Hong would come after him. There might be someone on the Omen Island, or even on the island that Yin Hong had secretly bribed to keep an eye on Luli. Yin Hong would not let go of the pain of losing his son and the fact that Luli had humiliated the Hall of Black Flame. Yin Hong would not let this go even after hundreds or thousands of years had passed. Therefore, Luli could not leave the Omen Island now. The first choice seemed good. Someone would give him top-level resources and help him improve his abilities. Many people would be overjoyed by such a heaven-sent opportunity. But Luli was not optimistic at all. The Saint Origin Palace was ranked 2nd among the 36 forces. Yun Kaiwe, the son of Yin Shueishue, was the most powerful young master of the Saint Origin Palace. Whether Luli could kill Yun Kaiwe or not, would Yin Shueishue let him go if he did? At that time, even the great Demon King might not be able to protect him. Also, would the devil offend Yin Shueishue for a nobody like him? Both choices seemed to lead to a dead end. Luli said nothing. There was no such thing as a pie in the sky, only a knife. There was no such thing as unconditional love, only eternal interests. Fairy Tian, Yin wanted to borrow his knife to kill someone. Or, to put it another way, he was a knife. After killing someone, the knife might be broken. Is there no other choice? Luli smiled bitterly and shrugged. Fairy, you want to make it up to me? You're not making it up to me. You are pushing me into the fire pit. Where's the pride you had when you killed Yin Jun? Fairy Tian Yun's casual words made Luli feel even more bitter. It seemed that Fairy Tian Yun had seen through him. It was not a spur-of-the-moment decision to grant him access to the primordial secret region. It was premeditated. Fairy Tian Yun replied, You have offended the Hall of Black Flame. You don't mind offending the Saint Origin Palace, do you? I can assure you that you will be absolutely safe at the Chaos Island and the Omen Island. As long as you kill Yun Kaiwei on the arena, nobody will dare to kill you. After that, you will be absolutely safe whether you enter the primordial secret region or go back to the Omen Island. As long as you don't leave the Omen Island without permission, Yin Shueishue will not trouble you. Oh, Lu Li raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but ask, will the great demon king withstand the pressure from Saint Origin Palace for me? Not for you. Fairy Tian Yun said, the great demon king and the 36 forces are sworn enemies. If you stay on the demonic island, she will definitely not allow the people of the 36 forces to come here, so you can rest assured. Luli was a bit relieved. After a moment of silence, he asked, are you that confident in me? Do you think I can reach the level of a 3 trials god in 7 years? You should have more confidence in yourself. Fairy Tian Yun smiled and said, since you could reach the peak of the god realm from a mortal world in such a short time, and you could even reach the heavenly devil island alive, don't you have the confidence to kill a playboy without much combat experience? Playboy? Lu Li was slightly suspicious in his heart. Could it be that Yin Kaiwa had played with Fairy Tian Yun's feelings? So Fairy Tian Yun hated him so much? Was it because she was the sister of the great demon king? She was afraid that she would bring trouble to the great demon king. So she asked him to go to the arena and kill him fair and square? Fairy Tian Yun was very familiar with his deeds. How did she get this information? Did the demon island have scouts in the divinity as well? That didn't seem possible. It was pointless to pursue this matter. Luli didn't even bother to ask. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, he said, okay, Fairy Tian Yun, I promise you that I will try my best to kill Yin Kaiwa. Very good, Fairy Tian Yun said with a hint of gratification. You can stay on the peak and cultivate for the next few years. You can go to the Demon King Mountain to study at any time. In addition, I will send someone to deliver a batch of top-level spirit medicine to you. You can also enter and leave the Yao Ceiling Tower freely. Let your bugs find a way to evolve. If your bugs can evolve 2 more times, killing Yin Kaiwe will probably be much easier. Okay, this time, Luli was delighted. It seemed that Fairy Tian Yun had seen his situation in the demon subduing tower. Fairy Tian Yun knew his situation like the back of her hand. Giving him the chance to enter the primordial mystery realm was not a spur-of-the-moment idea. She had been planning for a long time. Okay, you can go now, Fairy Tian Yun said. Later, another girl will go with you to the primordial mystery realm. Commander Lu will take care of everything. Luli walked out after he expressed his gratitude. He frowned. Someone else was going to the primordial mystery realm with him? So, Fairy Tian Yun had a backup plan. Was she going to train 2 people to go to the Island of Chaos together? If he could not kill Yin Kaiwe, then she would send someone else. Luli didn't feel as pressured as before. Luli walked out. A powerful warrior of the commander level was waiting for him. He was a dark-faced man. He cupped his fists and said, I am Lu Menglong. Fairy Tian Yun asked me to take you to the primordial mystery realm. Luli followed Commander Lu to a small palace nearby. Commander Lu said, wait here for a moment. There is another person. Luli was curious. Who else was going? What kind of monstrous genius was he? Was it the daughter or granddaughter of some patriarch of the Mountain of Cloud? Or was it from the family of Fairy Tian Yun? An hour later, Luli heard some footsteps. He stood up and looked at the door of the palace. Soon, Commander Lu came in, followed by a girl. The girl had a graceful figure. She was young and had a pure and refined temperament. She was wearing a veil, so her face could not be seen. But Luli recognized her right away. He could not help but exclaim, it is you. Ha! The girl smiled and said, I didn't expect to see you again. Do you want to ask me about the primordial mystery realm? 1 piece of divine origin gold for 1 question. No. Luli rolled his eyes. He had been tricked by this girl last time. Commander Lu would tell him about the primordial mystery realm. Luli would not waste money like this. This girl must have a powerful background. Luli thought to himself. The girl was young and her abilities were unfathomable. She must be at least a 2nd tribulation heaven god, more powerful than Uncle Li. She was indeed a genius. But Luli wondered about her practical abilities. Commander Lu said, let's talk on the way. I will show you to the primordial mystery realm. Lu Li and the green-robed lady followed Chief Commander Lu out. The three of them entered a small palace with a huge teleportation altar inside. The primordial mystery realm we are going to is not at the Omen Island, but the Boundless Island. Chapter 1854. There was a primordial chaos secret realm and 3 chaos secret realms at the second heaven. Actually, this was on the surface. There were more than 3 primordial mystic realms. The Boundless Island's mystic realm was not known to the world. The 36 forces must know about it. But the Demon Lord, Lord of Boundless Island, and the other island owner were all powerful. The 36 forces just didn't dare to come and fight for it. The 3 of them teleported on the teleportation altar. The Boundless Island was some distance away from the Omen Island. Lu Li felt it took him half a day to arrive at a castle. Chief Commander Lu. There were several warriors in the castle. They were all powerful. An old man knew Chief Commander Lu, and he stood up to greet him. Chief Commander Lu bowed and said, "Patriarchy, I am here to take 2 people to the Chaos Secret Realm. This is the token of the Demon Lord." Chief Commander Lu took out a black token. Lu Li took a look and noticed the runes on the token were strange. He felt his soul was being sucked in. Patriarchy took over the token and said, "Chief Commander Li, take them to the Chaos Secret Realm and give them some instructions." A middle-aged leader walked over. Chief Commander Lu said to Lu Li and Commander Lu, "Go with them. Remember what I told you." Lu Li and the green-robed lady nodded. Lu Li was about to leave when Chief Commander Lu suddenly said, "Lu Li, when you are cultivating in the Chaos Secret Realm, you must pay attention to 2 things. First, feel the marks of Tao in heaven and earth. Second, find a way to absorb the primordial chaos chi. If you can absorb some of it, it will be of great help to your cultivation in the future." Lu Li stopped and memorized Commander Lu's words. He turned around and nodded to Commander Li. Then, he followed Commander Li out. The green-robed lady stood side by side with Lu Li. She looked back at Chief Commander Lu and asked with curiosity, "Lu Li, what did Chief Commander Lu tell you secretly?" Lu Li put on a mocking smile and replied, "I am not telling you. If you want to know, give me 100 pieces of divine origin gold." The green-robed lady couldn't help but sneer. She replied, "Do you think I am an idiot? I know the Chaos Secret Realm like the back of my hand. Do I need to ask you?" Hee. Lu Li smiled and paid no more attention to the lady. Outside the castle, Commander Li showed them to another castle. In front of a teleportation altar, Commander Li said, "Remember, you can only stay here for a month. You're not allowed to use force. If you destroy anything in here, you will be killed. After you enter, sit cross-legged and cultivate, understand?" "Got it." Lu Li and the green-robed lady cupped their fists and bowed. Commander Li led them into the teleportation formation. After a flash of white light, the 3 of them came to a strange underground world. It was a huge cave with a lava lake in the distance. Black smoke was rising from many places. The temperature here was so high that even Lu Li found it unbearable. "Follow me." Chief Li flew toward the lava lake. Lu Li and the green-robed lady followed him. When they reached the lava lake, Commander Li pointed down and said, "Dive into the lava, and you will be teleported to the primordial mystic realm." The green-robed lady seemed to have been here before. She was not surprised at all. Lu Li was surprised for a moment, but then he understood. A magical place must be in a magical place. Whoosh, the green-robed lady took the lead. She dived into the lava and disappeared. Lu Li cupped his fist to Chief Li and dived into the lava. In the lava, he felt the heat was unbearable. He felt like he was on fire. However, after a moment, a strong force enveloped him. He felt the world was spinning and he was sucked into a black hole. Buzzing, after a long while, Lu Li felt his feet touch the ground. He did not open his eyes in a hurry. Instead, he checked the surroundings and used psychic power to check the situation. He scanned the area with his divine will and found that the space he was in was very small. It was only about 1,000 miles in radius, and there was nothing in it. There were no mountains, no water, no trees, no animals. Apart from a teleportation altar and 2 people, there were no other living beings. It was more like he was in an egg. This space was an oval sphere, and it was filled with faint purple mist. In the middle of the space sat an old man. His white beard touched the ground, and he seemed to be aged. It was as if he was a man that was nearing the end of his life. This old man was powerful. Luli believed he was at least a 3 trials heaven immortal. When Luli came in, the old man didn't even open his eyes. He was like a sleeping man, paying no attention to Luli. The green-robed lady was already cultivating on the ground. She didn't mind Luli coming in. Luli opened his eyes and took a look. Soon, he sat down on the ground as well. He took a deep breath. He felt comfortable from head to toe. The xianqi here was much thicker than at the peak of the cloud of heaven. Cultivating here would be as fast as lightning. Luli was not in a hurry to cultivate. The cultivation of divine energy was not the key. Even though the xianqi here was thick, cultivating at the peak of the cloud of heaven would not slow down. It was just a matter of time. Chief Commander Lu just told Luli that he must pay attention to 2 things when cultivating here. The first was to perceive the marks of Tao in heaven and earth, and the second was to absorb the primordial chaos. Is this purple haze the primordial chaos? Luli waved his hand. The purple haze seemed special. It made the entire space blurry. Was that why this place was named the primordial chaos region? Let me try to cultivate divine energy first. Luli began to meditate. He began to absorb the xianqi in heaven and earth. At the same time, he used psychic power to sense the surroundings. This is fast. As soon as he used his method, divine energy surged out from his body. Cultivating here was much faster than at the Green Moon Peak, at least hundreds of times faster. Luli stopped after only an hour. He was not here to cultivate divine energy. He had been trying to sense the purple haze around him. There was no fluctuation or change. He was sure that the purple haze was the primordial chaos. How can I absorb the primordial chaos? Luli thought. Chief Commander Lu had specifically told him. Besides, the name of the primordial chaos region contained the word primordial chaos. Clearly, the primordial chaos was precious and beneficial to warriors' cultivation. Luli tried to take a deep breath. However, the primordial chaos around him could not be inhaled. The primordial chaos was floating around him. Luli thought for a while. He began to mobilize divine energy. The divine energy flowed quickly in his body according to a special pattern. If others could see his energy channels, they would feel that Luli's body had become a whirlpool. No, none of them. 10 hours later, Luli stopped helplessly. He had tried 7 or 8 ways, but none of them worked. The primordial chaos was like a goddess. No matter how Luli tried, it would not be moved. It floated in the space quietly. Chapter 1855. Luli entered the dreamland. He did not use psychic power. Instead, he used his mind to sense the surroundings. He noticed that the world around him was different. A very strange feeling appeared in his mind. He felt that he was not in a world, but more like he was in a furnace. This space was like a strange furnace. He could sense that there were strange patterns in many places. These patterns were somewhat similar to the runes of a spell formation, but every single one of them seemed to contain the essence of the great Tao, displaying the laws of heaven and earth. They were like magical chains of order, like the skeletons of giant beasts supporting this strange space. This feeling was very mysterious, and there was an indescribable feeling to it. It was not that Luli's soul was touched at once. He just felt that it was amazing. He was like a kid who saw a powerful warrior practicing with his sword. He could not understand anything, but he could feel the profoundness of the swordsmanship. Heaven and earth as a furnace? To refine the traces of great Tao. An idea flashed across Luli's mind. At the moment, he was not in a hurry to go to the marks of the Great Path, to find an opportunity to learn something. His first thought was to engrave the marks of the great path in the depth of his soul. He did not know what the traces of great Tao could be used for. He only knew that they were treasures. As long as he could record it, there would be endless benefits for his future cultivation. Well, I will memorize them. Luli was excited. He could use this strange space as a formation and all the traces of great Tao as formation patterns. As long as he could record the formation, he would benefit for the rest of his life. He forgot everything and began to engrave the traces of great Tao in his mind. A blank piece of paper appeared in his mind. He tried to engrave the traces of great Tao on that piece of paper so that he could remember them forever. When Luli calmed down and stopped paying attention to the outside world, he suddenly realized that his mind was blank. All the images he sensed were gone. The pattern and arrangement of the traces of great Tao were gone from his mind. What is going on? Luli opened his eyes all of a sudden. He had never seen or heard of such a strange situation. He opened his eyes and looked around. Then he began to meditate again to sense the surroundings. This time, he could sense the traces of great Tao in heaven and earth clearly. However, when he withdrew his thoughts and wanted to inscribe these marks of the great Tao, his mind was blank again. After repeating this a few times, he was sure of one thing. These heaven and earth Tao marks could only be comprehended here. If a martial artist could comprehend something from within, it would be a source of fortune for a martial artist. Once a martial artist left this place, they would not have any memories of the great Tao scar in their minds. This was a very strange thing, but it really happened. Luli was a bit anxious. It was such a good and unique treasure map, but he couldn't record it. It was such a pity. He could only stay here for a month. What could he comprehend in a month? All right. All of a sudden, Luli remembered that he had a goblin spirit, Blood Fairy. He had a psychic connection with Blood Fairy. The two of them had studied the spell formation together in the past, so they could verify each other's information. Could he record the diagram and let Blood Fairy inscribe it, and then pass it on to him later? Give it a try. Luli sent a message to Blood Fairy. He told her that when he tried to sense it, she could obtain the pattern and distribution of the trace of great Tao directly from his mind so that she could record it herself. Buzzing, Blood Fairy reached out her tentacle and reached into Luli's soul. Luli sat with his legs crossed to sense the trace of great Tao outside. While he was doing that, the diagram of the trace of great Tao would appear in his mind. Blood Fairy could sense it easily. It was up to her to engrave it. Time moved on. Luli was getting more and more nervous because Blood Fairy had not sent him a message. If she could not memorize it, then she would have done so a long time ago. 6 hours had passed, but Blood Fairy still had not sent a message. Luli was even more excited. Another 8 hours passed, and Blood Fairy's voice finally rang out. Master, I've memorized the whole picture. I'll send it to you later. Good. Luli was overjoyed. He stopped trying to sense what was going on outside. He calmed himself down and said, Send it to me now. I will try. Luli was afraid that Blood Fairy could not engrave the essence of the trace of great Tao. What if the result was a useless one? Then all his efforts would have been in vain. Blood Fairy's tentacle glowed as she sent over some information. Luli calmed himself down and sorted through the information. To his surprise, Blood Fairy had engraved the trace of great Tao. There were over 3,000 traces of great Tao. The pattern and arrangement were almost the same or even identical. Something is not right. Soon, Luli noticed something. He tried to sense the diagram carefully, but he did not feel anything. It didn't have that kind of feeling that he didn't understand, and it gave him the feeling that it was just an ordinary array diagram. Only the pattern, but not the essence. Luli frowned. If the essence could not be engraved and the truth contained in the trace of great Tao could not be expressed, then the diagram would be meaningless. What he had just done would be a waste of time. Luli thought for a moment and said to Blood Fairy, I will keep trying to sense the trace of great Tao outside. Compare it and see if there is anything wrong. Luli went into the land of illusion and continued to sense the outside. Traces of great Tao appeared in his mind automatically. Blood Fairy began to compare and see if there was any difference between the trace and the one engraved. For hours later, Blood Fairy said, "Master, it is correct. This is engraved according to the picture in your soul. There is nothing wrong. I think I have been overthinking." Luli nodded. The trace of great Tao was the truth in heaven and earth. It explained the profound meanings of natural formations. If it could be easily engraved, it would not be so impressive. Luli had wasted more than a day, and he had essentially obtained a counterfeit. What should I do now? Luli was troubled. He could not absorb the primordial chaos, and he could not record the trace of great Tao. He studied for a while, but did not feel anything special. It would be difficult to learn something from the trace of great Tao in a short time. He opened his eyes and looked at this small world and the floating purple smoke. Suddenly, he exclaimed, "This place is like a furnace. If I have a furnace of my own, I might be able to absorb the primordial chaos." Furnace? Furnace. My body can become a furnace. Luli's body and soul trembled. He remembered something. He once engraved a formation in his body to absorb thunderbolts. Now, he had a formation to collect thunderbolts. He was not afraid of any thunderbolts, and he could transform them into energy in his body. If so, Chapter 1856. Luli once had a lightning-gathering formation in his body. With this formation, he was no longer afraid of thunderbolts. Instead, he longed for powerful thunderbolts because thunderbolts could strengthen his body quickly. The primordial chaos aura seemed special. Luli had tried many ways, but failed to absorb it. It meant that without special means, he could not absorb the primordial chaos aura. If Luli could build the mark of the primordial chaos in his body, then his body would become a counterfeit version of the primordial chaos realm. He could absorb the primordial chaos aura easily. The patterns of the formation were ready-made and could be built by imitating them. That being said, Luli used to build the lightning-gathering formation with thunderbolts. Now, there was no thunderbolts. How could he build it without external help? Luli was struggling. He did not have much time. He could only stay here for a month. The Omen Island could only send 10 warriors here every year. Fairy Tianyin might be influential, but Luli would not be able to come here again this year. If he gained nothing this time, he might never have another chance to come here. 2 days had passed. Could Luli engrave the mark of the primordial chaos in his body in the remaining time? Could he absorb the primordial chaos aura after that? Luli was not sure. In other words, if Luli wanted to engrave the mark of the primordial chaos aura, he would have to take a gamble. If he lost, he would have wasted such a good opportunity. If he won, he might gain something. Luli was not so sure. He believed the chances of success were low, less than 30%. First of all, there were no thunderbolts here. Without external help, how could he engrave the formation? Secondly, Blood Fairy would try to record the mark of the primordial chaos aura. However, she could only engrave the shape, not the essence. Luli was afraid that even if the mark of the primordial chaos aura was successful, it would be an empty shell that could not absorb the primordial chaos aura. Should he take the gamble? Luli was in a dilemma. He thought for an hour and finally made up his mind. He had decided to take the gamble. Even if he failed, he would gain nothing at most. But he would not lose anything. Once he succeeded, he might gain endless benefits, and his abilities could be enhanced by leaps and bounds. Since he had made up his mind, Luli did not overthink. He entered the dreamland to cultivate divine energy, and at the same time, to see how he could engrave the mark of the primordial chaos aura into his body. First of all, carving the array required an external force. Where did this external force come from? There was nothing in the primordial mystic realm. It was impossible to obtain lightning unless one could absorb the primordial energy. If Luli could absorb the primordial chaos aura, he would have done so a long time ago. He wouldn't have gone to the trouble of carving marks of the great Tao. Therefore, there was only one way, and that was to mobilize the energy in the 720 meridians and let the lightning gathering array convert it into the power of lightning and then inscribe it in the body. Louis did not try it rashly. Instead, he began to calculate and verify carefully. At the same time, he began to figure out where to carve the mark of Tao on his body. It had to be known that there were more than 3,000 traces of the Great Path. This was not something that could be casually carved. It was a very complicated process. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 8 days had passed. The green-robed lady, cultivating near Lu Li, opened her eyes. She looked at Lu Li, shook her head, and sighed. She said in a voice that only she could hear, "It has been 10 days, and you haven't absorbed any primordial energy. There didn't seem to be any special enlightenment. It is such a waste of a chance to come in." The green-robed lady closed her eyes again after she sighed. She didn't absorb any primordial energy either. The primordial energy outside her body didn't change. Lu Li wondered if she had learned something. Another 10 days passed. The green-robed lady woke up on time. She looked at Lu Li again. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be able to see through Lu Li's body. This time, a trace of astonishment appeared in her eyes, and she murmured in bewilderment, "What is he doing? He is not trying to absorb the primordial energy or study the mark of Tao here. It seems he is transforming his body. Carve some strange things in my body? Is he trying to turn himself into a monster?" The green-robed lady could not understand. She frowned. She had been observing for an hour, but she had no idea what Lu Li was up to. She shook her head and went back to cultivating. Lu Li had begun to carve the mark of Tao. He had succeeded in more than 700. After a couple of days, he had reversed the energy of thunderbolts in his acupoints. As long as he had the energy of thunderbolts, the rest would be easy. He spent more than 10 days comprehending the more than 3,000 traces of the Great Tao, and he had also successfully deduced them. There were 206 bones in a person's body, and each bone had more than 10 traces of the Great Tao. Some large bones even had dozens of traces of the Great Tao. Fortunately, Lu Li had built an agglomeration formation before. He was experienced, so it was easy. He was treating the mark of Tao as a formation. He was just carving a formation similar to the mark of Tao in his body. In 20 days, he had only finished more than 700 marks of Tao. He had 10 days left. If he sped up, he should be able to do it. But only God could tell if he could succeed or if it would be effective. Never mind. I need to speed up. Lu Li banished all the distracting thoughts from his mind and focused on carving. He was getting faster and faster. Everything was going according to plan. He just needed to carve them one by one, step by step. Previously, Lu Li had to calculate, verify, and think over and over again. His speed was slow. Now, Lu Li didn't care about anything else. He sped up. He could carve more than 200 marks of Tao in one day. On the 25th day, Lu Li had finished 2,000 marks of Tao. He should be able to finish on the 28th or 29th day. It's up to fate. Lu Li was determined. He continued to carve quickly. He didn't even cultivate divine energy during this time. He devoted himself to it. If there was no effect after this successful inscription, then he would have made a wasted trip. On the 29th day, the green-robed lady opened her eyes again. She knew it was time. She stopped cultivating and wanted to see what Lu Li was up to. Lu Li was not done yet. He had dozens of marks of Tao left. All his bones were covered with marks of Tao. Fortunately, they were not visible inside his body. If they were visible outside his body, he would be a monster with tattoos all over his body. An hour later, Lu Li opened his eyes. He was so tired that he almost fell asleep. He saw the green-robed lady staring at him, but he didn't mind. After a moment of rest, he took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Let's begin. Divine energy flowed in Lu Li's body. He sent it into all the traces of the Great Path. He would know soon if he could make it or not. Buzzing, after a moment, Lu Li's body glowed. What happened shocked the green-robed lady. Chapter 1857. Well, the old man guarding the primordial realm suddenly opened his eyes. Coldness could be seen in his eyes. He had sensed something was wrong in the secret realm. After he glanced around, a look of astonishment appeared on his aged face. In an instant, all the primordial chi in the primordial realm was surging toward Luli. Over half of it was absorbed by Luli. The old man wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The next second, all the primordial chi in the primordial realm was gone. All of it was absorbed by Luli. The green-robed lady's mouth was so wide open that she could fit an egg in. At this moment, the green-robed lady suddenly thought of a saying. It's fine to be quiet, but amazing with a single brilliant feat. For the first 29 days, Luli did nothing. He didn't study the trace of the great Tao, nor did he try to absorb the primordial chi. He didn't even cultivate divine energy. On the last day, he made a move, and it was earth-shattering. He absorbed all the primordial chi in the primordial realm in one go. The green-robed lady must have been here several times. She had some knowledge of the primordial realm. Every year, the Omen Island, the Boundless Island, and the Star Dream Island would send 10 warriors here. There were many talents that could absorb the primordial chi, but they could only absorb a small amount. It would be amazing if they could absorb 1/10 of the primordial chi. How could Luli absorb all of it? It was not that absorbing all the primordial chi would affect the primordial realm. In a year, at most, there would be more primordial chi. It was just that in the next few months, the warriors that came in would not have much primordial chi to absorb. For this reason, the old man guarding the primordial realm didn't get angry. Otherwise, Luli would have been slapped to death. The old man stared at Luli as if he were a monster. He had been guarding the primordial realm for more than 100,000 years, and this was the first time he had seen a monster like Luli. Luli didn't show any emotion after absorbing so much primordial chi. He didn't open his eyes either. He continued to sit with his legs crossed. He had sensed the primordial chi entering his body. He was trying to stabilize his condition. He was afraid that his body would explode when the powerful energy entered his body. He could not operate the formation all the time. Could he? If he didn't, would the primordial chi slip away from his body? That's right. Split the grand mist energy into 720 acupoints. Luli thought away. He had absorbed so many thunderbolts in the past, and he had absorbed them all into his 6 paths. If he could absorb all the primordial energy into his 6 paths, the strength of his fleshly body would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. He began to guide the primordial aura into his 6 paths, but to his astonishment, he could not mobilize even the slightest bit of primordial aura. The primordial aura stopped at the juncture between his chest and abdomen, condensing into a ball. He could not move it at all. Why don't you try stopping the great Tao formation? Luli made up his mind and stopped the formation. If the primordial chaos chi spilled out by itself, then he would have to accept his fate. At most, he would just work for nothing. It was impossible for him to operate the array all the time. Thank goodness, thank goodness. A moment later, Luli was relieved. The primordial chaos energy had stopped moving. It had taken root in his body. He moved his body and discovered that the nebulous primordial energy did not move either. It remained suspended in front of his chest. As long as the nebulous primordial energy was in his body, he would have a chance to consume it slowly. Luli opened his eyes and exhaled. He saw that the green-robed lady was staring at him as if he was a monster. He grinned but did not say anything. "Luli, how did you do it?" The green-robed lady could not help but ask. Luli looked at the old man sitting not far away. Seeing that the old man was not going to scold him, Luli was relieved. He grinned and said, "I am lucky. I have learned a skill, but it can only be used once." Uffed, the green-robed lady snorted. Luli was treating her like an idiot. Skills were not elixirs that could only be used once. Since it was a skill, it could be used indefinitely. But since Luli was unwilling to tell her, she did not ask. She thought for a while and said, "Luli, don't talk about it. Stabilize yourself, and try to consume the primordial energy. If you can consume all of it, your body will be improved many times over. You might have a chance to cultivate the legendary Supreme Body." Supreme Body? Luli frowned. They were both immortals. Didn't they all have bodies of immortals? What was this supreme body? Sensing Lu Li's confusion, the green-robed lady waved her hand and said, "Don't ask so many questions. Cultivate first. You have one day. Don't waste it." Okay. Lu Li nodded and began to cultivate. At first, he checked his body and made sure that everything was fine. Then, he tried to cultivate divine energy. Nothing happened. While cultivating divine energy, Lu Li focused on the primordial energy in his lower body, trying to figure out a way to consume it. But he did not know much about the primordial energy. He tried several ways, but none of them could move the primordial energy. Time was almost up. Lu Li did not want to spend too much time thinking. He was going back soon. He could ask Fairy Tian Yun. Fairy Tian Yun was powerful. She might have a way to consume the primordial energy. Time is up. You can go now. When the time was up, the old man guarding the side spoke. Lu Li and the green-robed lady walked toward the teleportation altar. The old man activated it, and they disappeared from the secret realm. Buzzing, they dashed out. Commander Li had been waiting for them. His eyes glowed as he stared at Lu Li. Lu Li was surprised. Did Commander Li know about what happened in the primordial secret realm? Did the old man in charge of the secret realm spread the information through some special method? Come with me. Commander Li smiled and led the two out. This time, they didn't go to the castle they came from. Instead, they went to another castle. Commander Lu of the Cloud Mountain was not there. Instead, there was a young and beautiful lady. Young Master Lu, Lady E, this is Lady Qi Chun, the granddaughter of our island owner. Lu Li and the green-robed lady cupped their fists and bowed. Only now did Lu Li know that the green-robed lady was Lady. Last time, when Lu Li asked for her name, Lady E said her name was Little Fairy. Young Master Lu, Lady Qi Chun smiled, which dazzled Lu Li. She stood up, bowed to Lu Li, and came straight to the point. I will not hide anything. I admire you too, and I hope you can join the Boundless Island and the Qi family. I can give you the position of patriarch, and you can enjoy the best resources and treatment. For example, the primordial secret realm. You can go there once a year. Lu Li and Lady E looked at each other. Lady E was not surprised, but Lu Li was taken aback. He didn't expect that the Boundless Island would poach them and offer them such good treatment. I think it is because I have absorbed the primordial Qi. Lu Li understood. The Boundless Island thought that he could absorb the primordial Qi so they could train him. It was obvious that the Boundless Island wanted to recruit the granddaughter of their island owner. He should be the one the Boundless Island wanted. Lady, he was just a byproduct. Chapter 1858. Lu Li was not familiar with the Boundless Island. He had never even heard of it before. That being said, the Boundless Island should be at the same level as the Omen Island. The strength of Island Lord Wuya and the Great Demon King should be about the same. Otherwise, the three families wouldn't be able to occupy this primordial mystic realm together. That being said, Lu Li was not moved even if island owner Wuya promised him great benefits, and his granddaughter came forward to recruit him. First of all, Heavenly Devil Island was very free. He could come and go as he pleased. If he joined Boundless Island, he would be a member of Boundless Island for life. Secondly, he had an agreement with Fairy Tian Yun. He had always been a man of his word. Fairy Tian Yun did not mistreat him. So how could he go back on his word? Therefore, he cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your kindness, Miss Qi. I'm very comfortable on Heavenly Devil Island. I don't have any plans to change sides at the moment." Miss E smiled and said, "Miss Qi, my clansmen are all on Heavenly Devil Island. Thank you for your kind intentions." "All right, I won't force you." Lady Qi bowed again. She looked at Lu Li and said, "Even if we can't make a deal, we will still be friends. Young Master Lu, Lady E, you have made friends with Qi Chun. In the future, if you need any help, just come to the Boundless Island." This young Miss Qi was an interesting person. She was very magnanimous and had an honorable status, but she didn't put on any airs. She was one of those women with extremely high emotional intelligence. Lu Li cupped his fists again and said, "Lady Qi, You are the first friend I made in the second heaven." The corner of Miss Chi's mouth curled up, revealing a beautiful smile. Miss E, who was beside her, revealed a trace of dissatisfaction in her eyes, but she didn't say anything. Lady Chi called Commander Lee over and asked him to send them back. In the end, she gave Lu Li and Lady E a token, stating that they could enter and exit the boundless island freely with the token. Commander Lee brought the two of them back to the castle, where Commander Lu was waiting. He didn't say anything when he saw Lu Li and Lady E. He just said goodbye to the warriors of the boundless island and led Lu Li and Lady E into the teleportation formation. It seemed that Commander Lu knew nothing about what happened to Lu Li in the primordial realm. He brought the two back to the Heaven Cloud's peak and settled them in a castle. Then, he left after saying a few words. Lu Li, after Commander Lu left, Miss E immediately said angrily, "You said Miss Chi is your first friend? Don't tell me I don't count." Lu Li rolled his eyes and said, "First of all, you set me up. Secondly, I didn't even know your name in the beginning. There's so many fairies, how would I know which one is you? Thirdly, you cover your face all the time. Once you change your disguise, I will definitely not recognize you." Missy was so angry that she was about to explode. She said angrily, "Since you don't treat me as a friend, then I won't tell you about the supreme divine body and the primordial chi." Lu Li's eyes suddenly glowed. He stared at Lady E for a bit and said, "Lady, I suddenly realized that you are very beautiful. Even if there were 10,000 fairies, you would still be as dazzling as a star in the night sky. No matter how you disguise yourself, I will definitely be able to recognize you at a glance. To be able to make friends with you, this Lu feels very honored. Nice to meet you, nice to meet you." "Oof." Lady E snorted. Then she took off her veil, revealing a charming face that was both happy and angry. She stared at Lu Li and said, "Then who do you think is prettier, me or Lady Chi? Women are all about the same." Lu Li sighed to himself. They were both beauties of the same level. How could he speak against his conscience? He carefully sized up Miss E a few times, his eyes still sweeping across Miss Yi's graceful body, causing Miss E to be angry and embarrassed, almost going berserk. Before Lady E could lose her temper, Lu Li said, "Do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" "Of course." Lady E rolled her eyes and said, "Of course I want to hear the truth. What's the point of hearing a lie? Then you have to promise me first. If I say something harsh, you can't get angry, and you can't do anything stupid," Lu Li said as if he was about to make a promise. Lady E glared at Lu Li and said, "Okay, go ahead. But if you make things up and slander me maliciously, I will not forgive you." "Okay, I will tell you about Lady Chi first." Lu Li nodded and said, "If a person's looks and temperament are out of 100, I will give Lady Chi 95. She is a typical girl from a respectable family. She is gentle, generous, elegant, beautiful, and intelligent. She is born in a prestigious family. She is very suitable to be a wife." Lu Li's comment on Lady Chi was pertinent. Lady E asked with anticipation, "What about me? You? You are not suitable to be a wife." Lu Li waved his finger. He didn't care that Lady Yi's expression had changed. After a pause, he said, "You are suitable to be a mistress." "What?" Lady Yi's expressions changed completely. Her eyes were filled with anger and killing intent. "Don't get so worked up. Let me finish. Do you think I am right?" Lu Li waved his hand and said, "You are a seductress. You have a variety of temperament. Sometimes you are quiet and gentle like a virgin. Sometimes you are smart and cunning like a fox fairy. Sometimes you are naughty and cute like an elf. Sometimes you are dumb and dull like a phantom. A woman like you is not suitable to be a wife, only suitable to be a lover. I believe that most men in this world would like an alluring woman like you as a lover. You are the dream lover in many men's hearts." If I were to give you a score, I would give you 96 points. 96? Lady E looked better. At least, she was taller than Lady Chi. Did that mean she was prettier than Lady Chi? No, she was more attractive to Lu Li. Obscene. Lady E snorted. On second thought, She realized Lu Li's comment was right. She was like this. She could be quiet, and she could change her temperament. Lu Li's words were objective and factual. Seductress? Dream girl? Lady E was in a better mood. She smiled at Lu Li and said, "Have you ever seen a girl with a perfect score?" "Yes," Lu Li said with certainty. Lady E was not convinced and said, "Who is she? At the second heaven? Is she famous?" "I don't think you know her." Lu Li shook his head. He was confused and said, "She is my sister. In my heart, she is the only girl with a perfect score. As for where she is, I don't know. Maybe she is at the second heaven, or the third heaven, or a world with a pattern." "Your sister." Lady E soon calmed down. Everyone would love the house and its crow. It was understandable that Lu Li would give his sister such a high score. Chapter 1859. Supreme Divine Body. Lady Yi's mention of this caught Lu Li's attention. He asked at once, "What is Supreme Divine Body?" Lady Yi paused for a moment before she explained. There are 3 types of cultivation. The first is to study formations, the second is to cultivate the body, and the third is to cultivate the soul. The cultivation of laws and the soul is needless to say. When the body is cultivated to the extreme, the supreme divine body can be built. There are 3 known types. The first is the King Kong body, which is almost immortal and invincible among warriors of the same realm. The other was the Chaos Spirit body, which was relatively rare. The third is the Overlord body. Have you heard of Emperor Z? He cultivated the Overlord body. Back in the days, he dominated the third universe, and few could hurt him. Emperor Z? Lu Li curled his lips. Not only did he know of Emperor Z, but his body was still in the wicked bead. Emperor Z said that he had the strongest body in the third universe. It seemed that the rumors were true. Can the primordial chaos be used to cultivate the supreme divine body? Lu Li asked. Yes. Miss E nodded and said, primordial chaos aura is widely recognized as the best spiritual energy to cultivate the physical body. All the experts who cultivate the physical body have absorbed a lot of primordial chaos aura. Since you can absorb so much primordial chaos aura, you have the innate advantage of cultivating the supreme divine body. As long as you can consume the primordial chaos and find more chances to absorb more, your body will grow stronger and stronger. When it is strong enough, you will be able to build the supreme divine body. Once you have mastered the supreme divine body, even if you are only at the first tribulation, you can still defeat many third tribulation or even fourth tribulation gods. That's strong? Lu Li gasped. Sweeping away a 4 tribulation heaven god with the power of 1 tribulation. Wasn't this a little too domineering? Lu Li was excited. Do you know how to absorb the primordial chaos? Although I've absorbed a lot of grand mist energy, I can't absorb it at all. I don't know. Lady E shook her head. My body cannot absorb the primordial chaos. You can ask Fairy Tianyan. She should know. Okay. Lu Li nodded and cupped his fists. Thank you for your advice, Lady. I am grateful. Lady E snorted. Just now, someone said that we are not friends. Lu Li grinned and said, I know many fairies, but I only know one as pretty as you. Lady E, you are a magnanimous person. Please don't take it to heart. Being praised by Lu Li, Lady E beamed with joy. She stood up, waved her hand, and said, Okay, go back to cultivation. Fairy Tianyan will summon you later. I will go back now. Commander Lu had told Lu Li to wait here. Lu Li watched as Lady E left. An hour later, Commander Lu came in and said, Lu Li, Fairy wants to see you. Come with me. Lu Li followed Commander Lu to the castle again. It was the same side chamber. Lu Li was received by Fairy Tianyan. Just like the last time, Fairy Tianyan didn't show up. She only sent a message. Lu Li, I heard that you have absorbed all the primordial chi in the primordial secret area. Commander Lu didn't know anything about him, but he didn't expect Fairy Tianyan to know. Could it be that Missy said it? Lu Li cupped his fists in front of his chest and said, "Yes, Fairy. I was just lucky." "Good," Fairy Tian Yun praised. "You can stay in the Purple Cloud Palace. Later, I'll have Commander Lu send you a book on primordial qi. Study it well, and try to refine the primordial qi as soon as possible. When you are done, I will arrange for you to go back to the primordial secret area. As long as you can cultivate the supreme body, it will not be difficult to kill Yun Kai Wei." "Thank you, Fairy." Lu Li thanked her. He thought about it and said, "Fairy, I have an uncle named Li Tian. Can I let him live in the Purple Clouds Hall as well? That is your sole slave, right?" Fairy Tian Yun's words made Lu Li feel he had no more secrets. Fairy Tian Yun said after a moment of silence, "He is just a sole slave. Let him stay at the Green Moon Peak. It is already against the rules for me to let you live at the peak. Many people are unhappy. I cannot break the rules anymore." "All right." Lu Li didn't say more. It was true that one should not push one's luck. Fairy Tian Yun had already given him enough. Similarly, as long as he had the ability, he would help her kill Yun Kai Wei. He didn't know what kind of resentment Fairy Tian Yun and Yun Kai Wei had. All he knew was that one must be honest. Jiang retreated, and Commander Lu brought him to a palace hall. There were 2 maidservants in this palace hall. They looked decent and lively. Fairy Tian Yun was indeed very considerate. "This is the secret book that Fairy asked me to give you." Commander Lu took out a yellowed ancient book and handed it over. Then he explained the rules of the Tianyun Peak and left. Lu Li sat in the hall, waved his hand to the 2 maids, and said, "Help yourselves. I will call you if I need anything." After the 2 maids left, Lu Li opened the book at once. He had so much primordial energy in his body. It was equal to having a treasure trove. He couldn't wait to dig out the treasures and make use of them to strengthen himself. Lu Li read the book 3 times. The more he read, the more he frowned. Primordial energy was a miraculous thing in heaven and earth. It was difficult to refine and absorb it. It had to be absorbed bit by bit. There are 3 ways listed in the book, but there was no guarantee that the primordial energy could be absorbed. "Let's have a try." Lu Li walked into a room, opened the inhibition formation, and began a try. The first way was to boil a frog in warm water. Divine energy would be used to invade the body and divide the primordial energy bit by bit. Then, the energy would be used to strengthen the body. Half a day later, Lu Li gave up. This method was doable. However, after half a day, he only managed to divide a small amount of primordial energy. At this rate, it would take him at least hundreds of years to absorb all the primordial energy in his body. The second way was a secret. He used divine energy to build a formation inside his body and then use the formation to absorb the primordial energy. Then, he would turn the primordial energy into energy that the body needed to strengthen the body. It was easy to build such a formation. Lu Li succeeded after half a day. He could absorb the primordial energy. However, the problem was the same as the first way. It was too slow. If Lu Li only needed to absorb a small amount of primordial energy, it would be fine. He could spend a couple of months to refine it. But he had absorbed too much primordial energy. The efficiency of this method was too low. Then, there was only one way left. There was a certain degree of danger in this method. He had to use his divine energy to form some bombs, insert them into the primordial energy, and then blow it up. Once the primordial energy was blown up, part of it would be absorbed by the body. The cycle would repeat, and the efficiency would be much higher. However, if he did not control it well, he could easily hurt himself. If the primordial energy was messed up, he could be blown up into dust. Let's try it. Lu Li had no other choice. He had to take the risk. If he did not absorb so much primordial energy, he would be entering a treasure trove. He would find a pile of treasures, but not a single one. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.